Hello everyone and welcome to Fleet's Random Ramblings number 46. I mean, good lord, we really are, like, cracking through. Well, you get the idea, don't you? Or like, well, you get the point. We're just casually thrashing our way through, well, what is hopefully to be the road to the big 50 recorded ramblings. And it's actually really scary how close we're getting. There we go. That's that duty done. Excellent. So that's that done. And then what I need to do is do that. Then do that. Bring that over there like that. Extend that up a bit. Just gotta do some prep because you have to do certain things. Right, let's go get the Discord lads in. Oh, fuck's sake. Hang on! That was a false start. There! Now the title's correct. And we're all set. And let me just check if that's all gone through. Right. Excellent. And we're all set. Fantastic. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
No second place? No second place, given how long the discussion on this one alone will last. Timo. So I hope everyone's ready. C-Dodders is here, and is no doubt got Naval Art open as we speak, because he's probably going to be aggressively creating the ships of this timeline. In fact, that's probably why he asked the question in the first place.
Fox will probably make an appearance at some point. I think she's currently AFK.
Oh dear. Right then, so when I started this whole thing off with that post this morning, I did not expect there to be one clear, decisive winner. But that's exactly what we've got. You guys overwhelmingly voted to have C-Dodders be the thing up for discussion. None of the other proposals even got a single vote. So, if that's not democracy in action, I don't know what is. And it's about time we got started. Yeah, you don't get to sit down there.
Dang it.
I need all the MacGuffins I can lay hands on. Right, so the topic up for discussion, as some of you watching on YouTube may be aware of, and those of you who is on the panel, currently Chair and Dragon. Knight, we're not taking generic questions today. The questions should be related to the topic under discussion. At least until we say otherwise. No idea who the panel's going to get. To be fair, it doesn't really matter. Who's on the panel is whoever we get on the panel at this point. Like, it's just the way it is. Alright. So, the question is as follows. What if the Anglo-American War kicks off in the 1920s? This would involve the breakdown of the Washington Naval Treaty before it was settled, followed by 3 years of tension before an incident sparks it off in 1925. Assume World War I went as IRL. I assume the Canadian border would be built up and fortified and the Canadian Army returned to near World War I levels. Would the Empire be able to hold Canada and later use it as a springboard for their own invasion? How does the naval war go? Trade interdiction would be more of a problem for the UK than the US. I imagine the Royal Naval Air Service and RAF would be heavily involved too, the latter particularly over Canadian skies. How do the forces hold up over the North American winters? Would the industrial capacity of the US be able to match the Empire? So,
Yes.
the first thing
There's one big problem here.
the first thing we
Go on.
need the first thing we need to do is lay some groundwork here. So the first thing we need to establish is first thing we need to nail down is first of all how this happens.
Why does war break out in 25?
The easiest way to fix this is to have a far more hawkish Congress, an interventionist, almost nationalist American city on a hill Congress. Not so much not authoritarian or dictatorial, just it's our way or the highway, and we basically should dictate the world's affairs because we're just the greatest. Which with a few nudges and pokes, you could actually quite easily get a Congress like that.
Question is, how long would it stay in power like that?
Well, we've basically got to keep it in power until at least the outbreak of war.
Yeah, I mean, sort of after that sort of thing.
We'll
It
get.
could be very problematic. But,
We'll get that. So it's fairly understandable why the Washington Naval Treaty collapses. The US would probably be pushing for superiority rather than parity, which the RN will just flat out not accept.
refuse. Yeah.
And if they walk, everyone else walks. And if they walk, it's likely that it's going to become clear that the US has intentions of supplanting the British, rather than sharing power with the British, which is what happened during the interwar period historically. The US and Britain shared peacekeeping / world policing duties during the interwar period, even if there wasn't a League of Nations. Whereas it's clear the US wants to supplant the UK in that role. This will lead to Japan feeling worried, which means they'll likely stick with the British, with the Anglo-Japanese alliance being still upheld. That's pretty much guaranteed, because if the US is acting the way it is, there's no reason for the two powers to break away, because if they break away, they just die separately. If the British,
I'm not sure they'll die, but they'll definitely wither a bit.
well, no, as in like they will die. I was using abstract terms, but yeah, they will basically die separately. Or they'll be killed separately, if that makes sense. They'll be fought separately and will lose separately, whereas together they might actually win.
The problem is basically what would be the win conditions for the Anglo-Japanese side.
Oh, that's relatively simple. I was thinking about this all day at work and actually came to a relatively realistic conclusion. War reparations, for as far as the UK is concerned, war reparations, and not much more besides. Perhaps some form of limitation on American naval power if they can manage it, but that's most likely unlikely. So just some war reparations as far as the UK is concerned.
That's not a win condition, though. That's the victor's result. The question is, how would Britain and Japan actually win this war?
Oh, relatively simple.
What is required?
You basically have to bring the war home to the US in such a way that the population votes out. Basically, the same way you win this war is the same way the Confederacy stands a chance of winning the Civil War. You basically have to outlast long enough for pro-war politicians to be voted out of office in the United States, and a party willing to make peace and return to some form of status quo antebellum or accept some form of peace arrangement enters office in the White House. And for that to occur, you basically have to win. Or more accurately, you have to keep inflicting losses of reasonable size on the US such that the population grows weary of the conflict. Even if you don't have to invade the US and you're not looking to annex parts of the US. You're instead looking to get them to a point where they are willing to come to terms and accept terms that you are willing to put down.
Then we're probably looking around 1928.
Yeah,
when the next election would be.
Yeah, so you talk about 3 years of war, and honestly, 3 years of war is probably about what you'd expect for this conflict.
If it doesn't happen, Woods, then you've got a bigger problem, because then it's a case of invading the US is not really an easy feat.
It's not practical, and to be fair, the British and the Japanese wouldn't want to do that anyway. But also, it's important to bear in mind this is not an ideological slugging match, nor is it a war of annihilation. It's not another. This is the thing about it. It's not another Great War scenario. This is not another Great War. This is a war between. This is a mostly naval conflict. Because here's the thing. The US is probably not going to invade Canada until 2 to 3 years into the war, because of the logistic build-up you'll have to do to actually kick that off. And we've already said the Canadians have been prepping for the invasion for 3 years. And I'm sorry, but that will mean the bridges over various rivers and the routes through various areas will be mined, rigged to detonate. There is no easy way to invade Canada for the United States.
They make the mountains hellish.
Never mind the mountains. Even the developed areas on the east and west coast are so easily fortifiable, with choke points that can be very easily managed by the Canadian side. It's fairly straightforward.
Ira's asking, does the US stock market still crash like it did? If so, when? Also, does the Dust Bowl also happen?
Stock market
historically.
Stock market isn't until 29, and you're talking about wars will change financial development. And to be perfectly blunt with you, it's impossible to know what effect this war will have on US economic development. Because
probably wouldn't be great, to be honest.
I'm not an economist. To be fair, the US will have reserves to actually.
Oh, they'll have reserves, but it'll affect their growth of what has happened.
Oh yeah, which to be fair might actually prevent a stock market bubble. Like you might see a gradual depression of the stock market, but there won't be a crash like there was historically.
The fuck are you going on about?
The question. Honestly,
honestly
the war could actually cause problems with the stock market, because all of a sudden, the foreign powers which were investing and buying a lot from the US now are at war. A lot of people are going to go, no, I'm getting my money out and I'm hunkering down.
Yeah, I suppose the question here is how early are the problems sort of becoming so large that they can cause a crash?
I mean,
not saying that the crash will happen.
I mean, to be blunt, gentlemen, with the way this war basically has to end, because it's on the US when it ends, because the British and the Japanese are like, unless
they're not going to really have an opportunity to invade,
and also more to the point, the British, like, it's unlikely Canada falls unless the US fully commits. And here's the thing: if this sort of Congress is acting the way it is, the US will have to fight this war the way it always has, with patriotic volunteers and a somewhat limited draft. It's because it's not a war that's going to be like, yeah, they can drum it up a bit, but it's like, can you imagine many people who are gonna how much of the US populace is gonna sign up to displace the British Empire from their dominant throne?
At this point in time, I'm not actually sure how many people would be that willing to invade Canada.
Yeah, this is the thing. This is the thing. Like, also, the US isn't going to be able to leverage a stupidly large army. It'll have a sizable force, to be sure, and one relatively well trained, able to match the Anglo-Japanese alliance on the Canadian border, with a bit of back and forth offensives from either side. But it's not going to be overwhelming, crushing US manpower strength.
It's going to be a meat grinder against the US, because Canada's got either you're fighting armies that are fully equipped for chemical warfare in valleys around Maine, or you're trying to push through a very limited front in the. It's where
all
fucking
the US Caribbeans go to the Empire.
Detroit and Toronto are.
Hmm.
Like, good luck getting through there in the age of chemical warfare.
The war breaks out in 1925 night, so we.
Has Geneva been signed yet?
Nope, that's 49.
Although
that's
Freely
revision.
Geneva.
Revision.
You've got the
Yeah.
Geneva Protocol. You've got the Geneva Protocol of 25. So actually,
yeah,
this
chemicals.
war might prevent it. This war might actually prevent it being signed.
Honestly, the war may start after it's signed. And honestly, to be fair, no one. And
It was
honestly,
signed midnight. It was signed mid 25 June in particular.
I would point out also that all sides are aware that everyone's geared up to deal with chemical warfare, and if
But the Americans kind of aren't. Though.
No, but here's the
not
thing.
in the same way the British have.
True, but they can become geared up relatively quickly using. It's not very hard to gear up to.
The question is, will they use them?
Oh no, it can be hard to gear up against it.
It's a case of.
It depends what type of chemical weapons are used.
Yeah, and remember, like, this won't be the mustard gases in 1915. This will be stuff like proto-nerve agents and gases that chemical weapons that are designed to bypass.
I would point out
Red
that
flag.
I don't think either side will use chemical weapons. I
will.
don't see.
I could see the Canadians doing so.
I mean,
If the US do a heavy-duty push, I could entirely see them going, this is a valley full of troops, make it impassable. It's also
the fact that
do so.
chemical weapons are the doctrine of the time. You won't find a great power until sort of like the late into the 30s. That'll go. Maybe these chemical weapons shouldn't be our main doctrine.
I don't. That doesn't sound right.
One thing you do see a lot in the First World War is that chemical weapons are getting negated. And yes, you've got these sort of proto-nerve agents coming out.
The advantages
But the counters are very strong.
And the advantages of using them are outweighed by the costs to
and their advantages are in against pre-set up defensive positions. So it's most likely going to be the states are going to be the ones who have to instigate it.
Yeah, the states are going to instigate.
Will.
No, because what's the third type of chemical weapons called, Fox? In the thing we recently went through, because basically there's one which lingers in cooling, clothing.
That's mustard gas.
No, it's not mustard.
No, the sulfates.
Yeah, basically
sulfates where they form
lingers.
droplets during in trenches, and they were used against artillery and advancing infantry.
You can also
because
use
they
them
can just make it so if you have skin contact or
Of
have
anything.
they drink it, any water.
It's the sort of thing you would just fill a valley of. If you know an enemy's going through this area,
what I would point
blast
out,
it with some
what I
shells.
would point out is that this war will also depend entirely on both sides' access to trade to prop up their economies.
Which I don't actually think the US will be able to interdict British trade very well.
But the thing is, that chemical weapon is leagues more horrific than anything seen during the Great War. And
no, it's not. They were used in the Great War.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is that that was amongst other chemical weapons. Using chemical weapons will likely be seen as, well, like, do you want to return to the bad days of the Great War? Like, why do you need to use chemical weapons? Like, it's not going to look good on the international stage.
Because they're very much going to be
the stigma against chemical weapons hasn't come in yet.
It doesn't.
No, the stigma very much.
No, the stigma's in. The stigma is in.
It is. It is.
Yeah,
So I've done quite a bit of research. I've done some research on use of chemical weapons in the First World War, and it's very much when the Germans first use it, we're just going to throw this idea of the war because we need to break these trench lines around Ypres. We don't have how. Let's use the gas, and and by the time of 1918, the British doctrine for the use of chemical weapons is basically against artillery positions, and that's about it. Because it's a suppressant. It's used in a role as a suppressant, not as a lethal weapon.
And also,
it's to get the gun crews to get their gas masks on and shelter rather than serve their guns. It's not used.
Which is why I see it being used defensively in.
It'll be used defensively, and I don't. It'll be used. It's mainly used in the offense at the start of the 100 Days campaign against German positions. You see less of its use as 100 Days campaign wears on, as there are less pre-built defensive positions to fight their way through. So I really do think if it's going to happen, it's going to be an American use against British positions in Canada, because the British aren't coming into the States.
Okay,
which is why the British are going to use chemical weapons.
Yeah,
but
the
Americans
aren't geared up to use it.
Yeah, but the British are going to use it on the defensive because they've got fixed German positions.
Yeah, but we're not talking
fixed American positions for the offensive.
And also, the Americans will have limited routes through. The reason why these chemical weapons will be useful is, as you said, the reason why they stop using them more on the advance is because simple. If we keep throwing it forward and we're trying to advance through this,
you're forgetting that despite the fact they're practical, the stigma against chemical weapons came in force after the end of that conflict.
But the thing with the First World War is that the chemical weapons were not designed to harm anyone. Were not being used to harm the opposition.
That's not.
No, they were.
No, they're not, because the defenses have got so good.
He's talking. Chair's talking about by the end of the conflict.
Cyanide-based chemical weapons, blood agents
by the end
are
of the war,
specifically designed again to kill people.
This
the only reason the French have the cyanide-based.
There's the reason why Britain developed it, and Germany had developed it as well. There was multitudes of them designed to just bypass chemical weapon defenses, and they worked.
And remember,
not insignificant numbers by the end of the war, though.
They were though.
No, they really were. Why it wasn't used as much as the others?
So seriously, when we're looking at combined arms warfare at the end of the First World War in the 100 Days campaign, the chemical weapons are used as suppressants.
But the thing is, an important movement like that is, towards the end of that campaign, you start to get the return to maneuver warfare.
Exactly.
Which is doctrinally the weakness of chemical weapons.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they have to be used against fixed targets.
But if you look at the thinking,
what is the front in Canada going to be?
But if you look at the thinking of the interwar thinking is of a war of maneuver. They've moved away from, because they've seen that you can break trench warfare.
Like the 100 days. Yeah, the 100 Days offensive shatters the concept of long-term trench warfare. The 100 Days offensive just shatters the idea that long-term trench warfare is something that will be the future state of conflict.
Yeah, the British, basically the combined allies go, we can beat trench warfare now, and let's go, because trench warfare doesn't come back again. In 100 days, it's just of constant advances. The Germans can't dig in, and if they do, they get beaten out of them. And you see that happen on multiple points, at multiple positions, at multiple times in that go. They will hit dug-in Germans, because of course the Germans go back to the Hindenburg line, and then they just go straight through it.
You are talking about literally the last 100 days of World War I in general.
Yes,
but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, but you've got the caveat of no. Can I just point some out? You also get the caveat. This goes into the Cold War as well, where you see chemical weapons being used in the secondary role as anti-hardpoint. You have a hardpoint you need to dig the enemy out of by Soviet doctrine and by British doctrine of World War I and the early post-war period. You use the chemical weapons against hardpoints because you can't reliably hit an element in maneuver.
Honestly, it's why I would say basically I said back when we started the whole point about chemical weapons, it's used in a defensive role against choke points, because there's only certain routes the Americans can take to get through mountains.
And I would also point out
the more flat areas, it won't necessarily work as well, but in the mountains is where it'll be useful.
I would also point out again, I keep saying this and none of you have addressed it, there is a very, very deep-running stigma against the usage of chemical weapons in the aftermath of the Great War.
But also, if it's a war, this isn't uncommon for things to change.
Yes, however...
Did you see how long through the 30s the Britain tried to stop the war from even happening with Germany? Like, there is a stigma against war, and there is a stigma, there will certainly be a stigma against chemical weapons. They don't want a repeat of the horrors of the last war.
And honestly,
so they will try a lot.
That's more centered on not wanting a war instead of not wanting a chemical
why weren't chemical weapons used in World War II then?
Anyway.
Why weren't
because very specifically, But do you want to know the
Fresh
very
revenge.
specific reasons?
Then
Because
why
at
won't the
that
reasons
point, it
apply here?
escalated to nerve agents and anthrax. The Germans knew the British had anthrax and could effectively kill off 50% of the German population. The British knew the Germans had nerve agents that
Both
their
sides
chemical
knew
defenses
not to
couldn't
use
hope
it.
to defend. It
When
was
is
an
that-
early form of MAD.
Well then I ask.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the point. Yes, but that doesn't change the fact that whichever side uses chemical weapons first in this hypothetical conflict will basically be persona non grata internationally.
No.
Yes, they will
Because
be.
the
And they
Italians are
absolute-
using chemical weapons in Libya.
Yeah, but that's against.
And most people don't
The
care.
British,
Yeah, but that's against people
the
in
British
the sands
take
of
it into
Africa.
Iraq and Iran.
That's against
Anyway.
people in Africa. It doesn't matter. They're not white Europeans. It
Yeesh.
does. I'm
Anyway,
sorry, but I'm
very
going to be
quickly
blunt
moving
here.
on.
I'm going to be blunt here because I have to be, because it's a different
Someone
environment
quote-
entirely.
Someone quote fleet that, please.
Anyway, that's it. There will be no chemical weapons usage during this conflict. Moving on.
Then you've taken the fun out of it.
I have.
Debatable. They're not fun.
Um,
Moving
no way
on.
are they fun.
Swiftly.
so now we need to basically set the scene, which we've gotten sidetracked from. So, the year is 1920. So let me see. When was?
Oh, 1 second. Let's go over it again.
When? No. We have things to do. We have to
When
get
what?
there first.
Yeah.
When what?
Let
What are
me,
you after, Fleet? We might be able to tell you.
Yeah, but I'm looking it up rather than I'm actually going to try and do things myself rather than.
We're literally here, Fleet,
Like, this is literally why we are
okay.
here.
to help.
Okay. Oh, there we go. So negotiated from 21 to 22. Okay, so it's 1921. No, actually, negotiated from 1921 to 22. So let's assume January of 22, and the great powers have just walked away from Washington. Basically, after the US demanded and refused to budge on the concept of them being given superiority, with Britain dropped down to a level equivalent to basically their current strength, and the US being able to build up to a strength 120% the size of the Royal Navy. So
Which will definitely get them to sort of laugh them out and go, no thank you.
So everyone's walked. And the US politicians the US has a more nationalistic Congress, and by that I mean they are a Congress that is very much dedicated to the idea of the shining city on the hill. Basically extreme Wilsonianism. America's the shining city on the hill. We get to dictate what happens in the world. We jump, everyone else says how high. Basically. Britain, in order to help both pay off its debts to the United States, to try and be free of any of their influence, and to, how do I put this gently, fortify their economy, I could see adopting imperial preference far earlier, almost nearly 2 decades earlier than they did historically.
Almost certainly. Or at least, even if it's not just imperial preference, but also move away from working with America.
No, that's not.
Like-
No, because that will gimp the economy
might have to.
unnecessarily. That will gimp the economy unnecessarily. Because the thing, both sides might be annoyed with each other, but until the outbreak of war, neither's going to cut off trade or
I'm
limit
more suggesting that
trade
they're
in
going to
any
be
way.
looking at least other opportunities to work with in the future.
That's what imperial preference is. Imperial preference is... All imperial preference is a series of tariffs aimed to encourage trading within the British Empire.
I'm suggesting more than just within the British Empire, though.
Well, no.
I do think they'll try and do stuff more with people like Japan and various other European powers.
Well, they'll probably bring Japan...
They'll intensify trade there.
They'll probably bring Japan into the into the same tariff market as imperial preference.
Okay, just a quick thing I have to shoot down. Right, quick thing I have to shoot down by Surgeon an article.
Mm.
The Irish American divisions, if they try and start shit in Ireland, they're going to get shot by the IRA.
Yeah, because sufficiently...
Because the IRA have fought bloody for this peace and independence.
And I will point out, it's not even full independence.
They're shooting their own who are trying to start shit. They're going to shoot Americans who start shit.
Because it's important to bear in mind that the IRA, like the thing that people forget is that the Irish Civil War was between various wings of the Irish nationalist movement.
Yeah, it's the guys who are for the Free State and the guys who are against it.
Yeah,
essentially, the original IRA was like a mass coalition between the Irish Liberals, the Irish Conservatives, the Nationalists, and what were essentially proto-fascists. And essentially, in 22, with the de facto Irish independence, because it was de facto, they were technically still in the Empire, the Liberals and the Conservatives went off to form the Irish Free State and eventually the Republic of Ireland.
Ish.
And then the Communists, the proto-fascists, and the Nationalists essentially started a five-way kind of, not really, civil war until the 30s when it became an actual civil war. Then the 60s it became a civil war because fuck fascists.
Okay, so.
But yeah, any attempt to start shit in Ireland, get shot down. Like what happens when Irish Americans start trying to start shit in Ireland nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Although this time we don't lynch them.
So, moving swiftly onwards. Now we get to the... Oh, fuck. We lost Chair. Shit, that was a sudden. He must have lost his internet. Damn it.
F.
Sag. I'll pong.
Oh, do you know a fun little fact, Lee?
Yes?
During the Irish Civil War in the late 20s, both the IRA and the Irish Free State used chemical weapons against each other.
Wow, Foxo. I did not know about that little factoid.
Knight says the British will cancel the war debt. Yes, when the war breaks out. But prior to that, they'll still be servicing the debt, because bear in mind the British don't want the war to break out. So as far as they're concerned, they want to just keep things normal. So the British are just the British. The British will take steps up the escalation ladder they deem necessary, but it'll be the Americans that are taking leaps up the escalation ladder. It's like the British will be very carefully doing considered choices, and the American politicians will just be going, yeah, no. But basically, right up until the outbreak of the war, you're looking at a Britain that's still trying to maintain some form of trade with the United States. Still servicing. Yes, still servicing the debt. But of course also still, because even with a system of imperial preference, which will likely include the Japanese, those are tariffs, not stopping trade with the United States. It basically brings them onto an equal level, and it'll be the first time the British will have abandoned free trade. It's something we didn't do until much later in the interwar period under Neville Chamberlain. But in order for Britain to respond to American hostility and increased aggression, it's likely that the British will adopt imperial preference much earlier. Because there were voices calling for it in the aftermath of the First World War that were shot down. Now they have been given additional ammunition, and it's likely that some form of imperial preference will be forced through.
Fun fact. During World War One, the Germans smuggled nearly 1,000 tons of chemical weapons into Ireland to supply the Irish resistance. Those chemical weapons weren't used against the British. They were used against fellow Irishmen after their factory independence was achieved. Anyway, about the economy.
So, We do have the problem that continued naval spending is somewhat unpopular throughout the Empire. So you'll be seeing the British adopt, the British won't be, the British will be trimming down, and the British will be building, but they'll be looking to build to match American building rates, rather than...
Yeah, I was going to say, it's going to be a bit weird, because potentially British shipbuilding might actually help the economy.
Oh, it will do. It will help the economy, but it has to be balanced against public opinion across the Empire. This is the thing. It has to be...
What I see is, honestly, what we're going to have. Go on.
Britain has to be seen to be responding, but it has to do so in a way that's not...
Well...
Because bear in mind,
not
Britain...
unpopular to people.
Yeah, because bear in mind, Britain is also just a threat to the US. Well, it's not... Sorry, let me extrapolate what I mean when I say that. Britain isn't looking to escalate a conflict nor start a massive naval race. They will literally be building solely to keep up with / just about, literally by about 1 or 2 hulls, surpass the United States Navy. They will not be doing... To borrow
a term from Clark, I think they'll continue the qualitative naval race instead of the quantitative.
Oh no,
they'll be trying to basically do better designs and and in this case, keep basically numbers up.
The problem is the US in this timeline won't be doing a qualitative. The US, a Wilsonian nationalistic Congress looking to supplant the British Empire will be leaning more and more towards a quantitative race, and that's the problem here. This is the reason why Britain will have to maintain the Anglo-Japanese alliance to basically ensure that the British don't have to themselves dig into a massive shipbuilding program and can instead lean on the Japanese to provide a counterweight to America's move towards a more quantitative shipbuilding program.
I don't necessarily think that'll be the case, though. I can't see that. No, because Britain's already building 4 plus extra in terms of 4 battleships, 4 battle cruisers.
A year, yes.
The US are, theoretically speaking, going off the numbers of what they're producing, will be aiming for 6 Lexingtons, 6 South Dakotas.
So yeah, they're building
on the other hand, they've got a lot more older ships that aren't necessarily as good, such as the South Carolinas, Delawares, Floridas, Wyomings, etc. They are not... Because this is the debate that we were going through earlier for a number of ships that can be removed or decide on. Personally, I don't think they'll keep the South Carolinas and Delawares.
Yeah, they'll go. The South Carolinas and Delawares will go, but everything beyond that will basically have to be kept.
So, yeah, that's basically...
Can I just point out
Go on?
A tiny little issue, because I started to be taking them into the Empire. I'm 21, actually. Well... If you take just loan payments, and say you pay off just the interest, you don't actually buy down the loan, actually start paying it down like the British were doing. You take the amount of money that they were paying it down, put that into the Navy, the British can get into quantitative buildings.
But the question is, will they want to?
Let me finish. What they're tied for is manpower.
Because this is basically high Spanish flu.
Very low. A is the height of Spanish flu, and B, the Royal Navy is suffering from a very big case of shit on its manpower is just retired. Because they conscripted pretty much every sailor on the island. And a lot of people have just gone back to civilian life, and it's going to be really hard to get them back in without a general draft. So what I can see is the Americans keeping around a lot of the older ships, the British focusing on just getting new hulls and trying to get the crews, like the Iron Dukes of the Orions, them onto modern ships.
What I'll just do, Fleet, is
to crew them.
This is something that me and a couple of others were talking through earlier. So just that you have a list that I'm sort of basing stuff off as well, of potential stuff that at least is at hand. I personally the thing is, with the treaty falling apart, navies are potentially interesting. Because a lot of the ships that were previously scrapped because of the treaty, since the treaty broke down before they were ordered to be scrapped, there's a lot more ships lying around. I still see a good number of ships being scrapped, but For instance, I could see the Grand Fleet scrapping all ships before the 13.5s and keeping the 13.5s around purely in a secondary role. Or as a training, perhaps.
You're basically looking at the 13.5s as the second line capital ships of the RN. Serving in Africa and Asia, basically, as a backstop.
It lets them bring their best, the newest stuff to the front, sort of thing.
Yeah, you're probably looking at the home fleet consisting of the capital ships built post-World War One. You're looking at a Caribbean/Western Atlantic fleet consisting of 15-inch capital ships that are on call at a moment's notice, but will be more vulnerable to attacks by American fast units. And you're looking at the 13.5-inch ships serving in East Africa, the Indian Ocean, and Australia to serve as a powerful fleet unit just in case the Americans do decide to try something funny and the Japanese don't stop them.
The reason why I think the Royal Navy would keep the 13.5s, even if Britain has personally deemed the Orions and the King George V's as obsolete. Like, this is something that is known against modern threats. But they're not obsolete against the older US standards and earlier. So they at least have a chance. Also, do you really want to be losing 8 battleships when the US is sort of already going, well, if you're not doing this, we'll start doing it our way.
And of course,
there's grumbling.
You would though.
Well, I would point out that
you're running into the issue of. Okay.
Yeah, one of you go at least.
With these older ships around,
Foxo's right.
Running into the problem of crew. Like, the bigger the ship, it needs exponentially more men to crew.
The
reason why I think 13.5-inch, you're not getting as much combat power per man as you would if you got rid of them and put them on new.
True, but you've got a new problem. But you've got a problem here. You don't have the new hulls yet.
Well, the thing to bear in mind.
No, the issue is the Royal Navy doesn't have excess capacity.
They do, right?
No, crew-wise, trained crew, they don't have the excess capacity to put these new capital ships into.
Yeah, these ships are still currently in service in 22 and only get basically reserved and scrapped because of the treaty. So they at least have the crew for them currently. When we actually get to the G3s and N3s, because they will be finished.
With the 16.5-inch guns and the 18-inch guns.
Yes. You would see the older ships starting to be scrapped and taken out of service entirely.
AMC Woods, good lord, no. Yeah. The home fleet's staying in Scapa.
The problem is Hudson Bay, I'm not sure, has the capacity to fully.
There'll be a Canadian battle squadron, probably consisting of the QEs, as a fast wing operating out of Halifax, with 2 cruiser squadrons and a bunch of destroyers as escorts. But the home fleet will be in Scapa because it's safe in Scapa and the Americans can't get at it.
To be fair, the Americans can't really get at it in Canada anyway.
Yes, they can.
The Kiwis can't go to Canada.
Why can't
the Kiwis are going to the Caribbean?
You might have the R's in Canada.
Yeah, the R's is the theatre Canada's a theatre. The R's are best because it's distance-wise, it's not the Caribbean. The enemy's controlled in their approach, and the Americans aren't going to be sending fast capital ships to restricted waters. The QEs, obviously, the entire war's going to depend on the Caribbean.
Also, at this time, the QEs are Britain's strongest ships currently afloat.
They go to the Caribbean, and then you see the battle cruisers based out of Summer Islands. Have they been named Bermuda at this point?
Say that again, sorry?
The Summer Islands. Are they Bermuda yet?
Give me a moment then. When were you recognized? No, not that one. Not that one. Not that one. Became popular destination in the 30s. It doesn't. Biggest illegal alcoholic smuggling. It doesn't really say, I'm afraid. So maybe.
I'll just call it Bermuda for now. Then.
Yeah, we'll say Bermuda just for the sake of simplicity.
Yeah, but you're going to see the battle cruisers out to Bermuda. Yes, the British will want them ranging up and down the eastern seaboard. Because it's precious all the Americans can do that. She's going to tank the American economy now, I think. Okay.
It won't necessarily. I don't think it'll tank it, but they certainly won't be happy about it.
Because remember, you have stuff like the Dutch proton mask, this first. They're not going to be. They're responsible for a lot of American transportation capacity when it comes to foreign transport. And they refuse to go near the North Sea in World War One. They're not going to go anywhere near the eastern seaboard. Especially if there's battle cruisers ranging there and cruisers.
Makes sense.
On no one else, on none of like Hamburg America stuff. Right. The French companies aren't going to range. You're looking at Americans maybe, but the American merchant fleet's a bit all over the fucking place, isn't it?
Now, the one thing I'm a bit curious about is how long do we think it actually takes for ships currently under construction to be finished construction? Because this does relatively become important.
Basically, what you've got is So bear this in mind. When people like Dr. Clark and Drac and myself talk about battleships a year, we're talking about laying down. So what will happen is you'll definitely have the N3s, and you'll definitely have the G3s, you'll definitely have the South Dakotas, and you'll definitely have the Lexingtons in service at the outbreak of war.
I don't think we actually do.
No, we will do. 22 to 25. Yeah, 3 years build time. Considering they've all already been started. Yeah, that's about right.
They haven't though. They haven't been. Right, so
they're about to be. They're about to be.
So it also depends on how much money they do throw at these things, which
3 years.
I'm not sure what the Congress might do.
I mean, 3 years is about
3
average
years is definitely
for
possible,
3 years is about average for peacetime building rates in the RN.
For the RN, but considering South Dakota was laid down March 15th, 1920, and by the time she was sold for scrap, she was only 38% complete after 2 years of work being done on her.
Yes, but I will point out, Dragon, that they were very on and off about working on the South Dakotas because of the political developments ongoing. That had nothing to do with American build rates. If we're talking about the US just being a more nationalistic...
Well, yeah, but if we're still having, up until then...
Well, then work continues.
There's this sort of...
well,
I'm not sure that'd be... I'm meaning until 22. I'm wondering if... Would they still be sort of off and on because they're still wondering maybe they will accept the treaty then, sort of thing?
Well, no, because if the US is walking into that treaty demanding to be more powerful than the British, then the US is going to have to build up to that power. Which means South Dakotas will be required, especially since they are the fast wing of the US battle line at 23 knots. They are.
That's
what they're supposed to be. That's the reason. It's the reason why the US went for that 2-knot increase in speed. They wanted a fast wing to match the Revengers and the QEs if they're operating in the battle.
It doesn't match the Revengers, though. I don't think
it matches. It matches the Revengers on an average day.
Aren't they?
No, they were designed as 24, but they came out as 23 on a good day with a following wind.
Basically, that's in World War II after refits.
No, that is as built. The Revengers were about a knot and a half slower than the QEs, basically down to the fact that they were converted to oil firing during the design and construction phase, and they were more geared up for. It's basically down to the fact that they were never meant to. Yeah.
Yes, they were meant for. They were meant. They were meant for fuel, oil, and coal, but then they were later then... Fisher then rescinded this in 14 to employ fully oil-powered.
But they were never. They were never supposed. They were never supposed to be 24-knot capital ships. They were supposed to be 21-knot ships. They were basically 21-knot, cheaper, mixed fuel QEs. That was the whole point of the Revengers.
They were basically meant to put the nail in the coffin for the naval arms race with Germany.
Flipping them to oil.
I'm building 8 of these was the initial idea.
Yeah, flipping them to oil gained them 2 knots of speed.
It was definitely the right decision.
But they were not as fast as the QEs. This is the thing.
Like, they are, on average, slightly worse QEs in a number of regards, apart from basically gunnery.
This is the reason why when you look at a Revenge that hasn't had an engine rebuild or much maintenance on its engines, that's doing about 20 to 21 knots. Whereas when you look at a QE that's been badly maintained, like one of the less rebuilt Queen Elizabeths, you're looking at a ship doing 21, 22 knots.
By the end of the war, it's like 2.5 knots.
Yeah, Warspite's got plot armor.
I'm sorry, but when your battleship already does 18.5 knots in World War II, by 1944.
One problem will be the fact that there is 4 N3s to 6 South Dakotas, basically.
Well, the South Dakotas aren't designed to counter the N3s. It's the follow-on to the South Dakota. It's what will be the US counter to the N3s, and the G3s will be the follow-ons to the South Dakotas and the Lexingtons. The ships laid down in 1923.
And, I do personally think, though, that the Lexingtons are going to have a real bad day.
Oh no, they are. Oh no, they are. The Lexingtons, whatever way you slice it, are going to have a bad war. But we'll
get to them.
Yeah, we need to move on from what we know to what we don't know. So the ships of the 23 build cycles. So the 22 build cycles will be N3 and G3 for the UK, and South Dakotas and Lexingtons for the US, because they'll be resuming them rather than laying down new ships.
Do just want to throw in a little aside one here, because we are including Japan to a degree.
Oh yeah,
Japan at this point will be looking. Japan will be looking at the Key class, and more interestingly, number 13.
Yeah,
because they were meant to be laid down 22-23.
No, flipping battle zeppelins. No.
Sorry, I thought you referred to something else.
Cease.
Yeah. The battle zeppelin moves in. Sopwith Camel hits it with a rocket. Battle zeppelin is very, very sad.
Yeah.
Our enemy is being reinforced by a Dren.
I think we'll come back to Japan's naval construction once we've talked about the two main players. Because what Japan will do will be determined very much on what those two do. So we'll get back to Japan later.
I do think we will see Keys and Amagi.
I don't doubt that.
Those are in the build cycle.
I don't doubt.
22-23.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, Japan is the rare case we know what their 23 build cycle is going to be. We know it was going to be Keys and number 13s.
Now, that's actually a very interesting thing.
We'll get to carriers. We will get to carriers. We're not there yet. We'll get to carriers. So first things first. So Japan is the only one of the trio we know what their 23 build cycle is. Their 22 is Amagis and Akagis. Sorry, Amagis and Kagas.
Tosas.
Sorry, Tosas. Thank you, Dragon. Yep. And their 23 is Keys and number 13s, because remember, the number 13s are taking over from the battle cruisers and merging into fast battle ships.
No, that's the Keys which are doing that.
Sorry, yeah, yeah, all right, fair enough.
Number 13s are the 18-inch ones, but Japan at this point is just going for fast battleships in general.
No, I know, but you get the point I'm making. It's like the two tranches are merging, but like there's one for each. So for 23, in terms of the US, I think is actually fairly simple. You're looking at what is essentially Coloradoing the South Dakotas, just to speed the rate at which these ships can be laid down. You're looking at probably 4. So you're looking at 2 tranches of US battleship construction. You're looking at 4 basically South Dakota 1921s, but with 4 twin 18s rather than 4 triple 16s, just to rapidly get some 18-inch guns into the US fleet.
Thank you, Ira.
Like, just, you know, like, you get what I mean, Dragon? Like lay these 4 ships down quick, get some 18-inch guns into the fleet.
Basically what they did with the Tennessees to Colorados.
Yeah.
Literally, basically, exact same hull, swap out the guns.
But the next 2, but you'll notice I only said 4 rather than 6. The other 2, which will probably lay down towards the end of 23, will probably be to a different, much improved design, which probably displaces a heck of a lot more than a South Dakota does, and is armed with, again, probably because they haven't developed triples yet, so probably still be 4 twins, but is likely to be a 25-knot fast battleship with slightly thicker armor. Although I'm up in the air about whether this is a ship carrying 8 18s or 9 16s in 2 triple forwards and a triple aft as a US fast battleships, which is supposed to be something to overmatch the QEs, basically.
Honestly, what the Royal Navy chooses to bring out is also going to be intriguing. What do we think the US do battle cruiser wise though as well? While we're on the subtopic of the US.
Yeah, so for the 23 battle cruiser, once it becomes clear what the G3s are, the Lexingtons will basically be portioned off into, like, you are possibly raiders or commerce interdiction vessels. Like, the Lexingtons do not go near.
You are not a battle unit. Your armor is too weak.
So you're probably looking at, basically, because they now need to rapidly get something to replace them, you're looking at probably a ship carrying, especially since the triples are now worked up for the South Dakotas, you're probably looking at, basically, it's very similar to the one of the proposed. Oh no, actually that's what it'll be. The US battleships will probably it probably will just be 6 18-inch ships to, get 2 more than the British have, and the battle cruisers will be probably 29 30-knot ships, so less speed, carrying 9 16-inch guns in 3 triple turrets, 2 forward, 1 aft, and armoured to at least resist 15-inch shell fire. So they might not be armoured to resist the 16.5-inch guns, at least not
of the G3.
At least not at battle ranges both sides are expecting. Perhaps at longer range they might be able to, but they will absolutely trounce Hood if they find her.
So,
if they're armored to resist 15-inch guns, and
Hood's 32, 33 knots. She'll just fuck off.
Yeah, but in that case,
if Hood chooses to push the fight, Hood might have a bad day.
Well, yeah, but then Foxo, at that point, she doesn't stop the Americans in succeeding at whatever they're doing.
Yeah,
like naval.
The British battle cruisers are going to be the active raiders, not the reactive.
Well, then in that case,
because at this point, I think you would see a squadron of 3 ships of Renown, Repulse, and Hood potentially doing raiding.
At that point, then these battle cruisers just have to stay with. Either way, that's not like how the ships are used right now. Isn't the point right now? It's just what they're building. Like, I will point out, from this point onwards, we are into the realm of wild conjecture. Everything from this point on, is basically fan fiction. And we are well beyond. No, at this point, when it comes to what's being built, we are well beyond actual knowledge.
It's extrapolating at best.
At best.
But we have sort of guidelines of what the Navy's going to do at a point in time.
Britain has a lot of guidelines that we can at least look at.
Very funny going on.
So the Japanese have 4 21-inch Yamato class? No.
Where did the Yamatos come from? Sorry?
Yeah. Where have the Yamatos come from? Like, we are.
Like, number 13s are the best you're getting for Japan. Like
it's 1920. It's 1923 right now. Like, we're not even close to the Yamatos as a concept being thought of.
Actually, you are.
Well,
what's his name? The weird Hiraga guy.
yeah, but we don't talk about that. That was very silly.
No, not the maximum, his stupid one. His Congo replacement and battleship replacement ones.
Well, yes,
Well, that
but...
at least had some semblance of sense.
And I would point out, though, those are Washington Treaty era capital ships. And they are quite literally Washington Treaty capital ships. So again, we're well outside. Anyway, moving on.
He's also made others that aren't.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So for 1923 for the Royal Navy, I actually, funnily enough, I actually came up with one hypothetical, if I can find it. It's a little bit more modern than it should be, but it still serves a purpose. Let me see if I can find it. Sea Dotter should still have it in his thing. Of what a follow-on to a GNN3 would look like if built immediately a year afterwards.
Yes, Tiger, who's running around at this point, is very much not having a good day.
The Tiger's not going to have a bad day.
Yeah, you have to bear in mind, Dragon, the 13.5-inch battle cruisers are basically operating out of Australia and the South. And
that's what I'm saying. They're not going to have a good day if they do end up in a fight at all.
Well, not
necessarily. Much older ship.
Not necessarily. Depends what they're fighting.
You underestimate the thinness of Lexington's armor, the power of the 13.5, and the power of a good gunner.
True, but also the Lexingtons are much faster than Tiger. So the Lexingtons will just go, nope, not engage in that, and leg it.
You also got to remember, Tiger's a fucking chonker of a battle cruiser.
Where's the one I'm looking for?
She's qualified. Also, what did I miss? My meds arrived.
Fleet's trying to find basically what he thinks will be the follow-ons to the G3s and N3s.
I know.
That's simple. That's simple. You get a G3 derivative built as a battleship, and the Royal Navy returns to conventional battle cruisers like they planned.
I actually found an image that has them all together in one. Where are we?
Are the nations mass building subs? That's a good question. I don't necessarily know. Because similar to the whole thing of the nations were not a big fan of chemical weapons, nations weren't a big fan of submarines at this point either. Also, what image are you looking for, Fleet?
Found it.
Curiosity. What is it? Post it.
This is something I came up with for something else I was doing, but does serve quite well here. For me, personally, my follow-ons are this. So from bottom to top, and I'll just actually...
No.
Wait, let him finish. Let him finish at least.
Oh, God.
I can see where the inspiration for the top one's coming from, at least. But go on, please.
Let me just actually make sure that the live stream viewers can see this before I actually start talking. This was done some time ago, and it was an interesting thought experiment.
It looks like the top one's based off design M2, but
I'll
bigger.
let you. Yeah, I'll obviously.
M2, which was considered too big.
Foxo, are you going to let me say what I've got to say before you?
Like people then can see what I mean by design M2 looks vaguely similar to that top one. So it's basically a bigger version of M2.
So from bottom to top, as follows. We have. I think that's right, isn't it? Yeah. So you've got. I believe it goes G3 and N3. I think, yeah, G3 and N3.
Why are they so similar sized?
I think that's how it goes. I'm not entirely sure.
Because
either way.
Anyway, moving on.
So, but it's the top two that matter most. I think, unless I've got it wrong. No, I haven't. So the top one is a G3, but she's been slightly lengthened and carries 9/18s instead of 9/16s as the 1923 battle cruiser. And the top ship is the follow-on to the N3, which carries 12 18s rather than 9 18s. But remember, this was a long time ago. This is just basically a thought exercise. And
I said,
while I'm not saying it's what exactly they'd go with, but it seemed like a fairly straightforward, like, to drumbeat build another battleship the next year. Like, what are you gonna do? And to drumbeat another battle cruiser next year, what are you gonna do? You iterate.
So M2.
Can I tear apart this, please?
Well, I was at least going to explain what M2 is and why I think this could be a similar thing.
Go on then, Foxo.
Right, first things first. And I'll let Dragon finish. I need to get around.
Yeah, I'll at least get the context of what M2 is. M2 was a 815 feet long battleship weighing 50,000 tons, equipped with 8 18-inch guns in 4 centerline twin turrets. 2 fore, 2 amid, like the ones Fleet's showing. To do this, basically, we need to widen her and make it so you can fit, 4 more guns in, which would be a very impressive amount of firepower, but a bit awkward for this design, potentially. Also, for that extra tonnage, you're probably jumping up to more 52 to 53,000 tons. Also, I need to see if I can find it, but where was it? No, not that one. She was not exactly speed of 23.5 knots.
Which sticks with the N3s that have already been built. That's the thing.
Yes, but the problem is she's so much bigger in terms of length and width is the problem. You're going to have to build very specialist dockyard.
To be fair, though,
use very big dockyards.
To be fair, though, you're looking at these ships being very much home-centric capital units, like the ships following on from N3.
I kind of see them more wanting to move back up to 25 knots, personally.
No, I do agree. I just this was just a thought process.
Yeah, I know. I agree. But I see your logic, and I tentatively agree with you. But I think I know what Fox is about to say here.
So, for the battle cruisers, the Royal Navy had decided that the whole 3 guns up front, or the midships turrets, was unnecessary due to the sheer length needed for the Royal Navy was expecting battle cruiser ship speeds to be. When you're in late World War One, the upfront turret makes sense because it allows you to get a much better hull form on what's technically a shorter ship. And you get to the lengths of stuff like K3, K2, those sort of vessels, the math says it doesn't really matter. And then, so the Royal Navy planning to return to a 2-1 setup because the interference you got from the midships turret wasn't really seen as worth it for the engines.
Yeah. Just to confirm this for the record, design I3 is exactly what you're talking about, with an midship turret with 18-inch guns. And it was rejected. So
yeah, it was outright rejected.
Okay, so fair enough.
Because
that's fair. That's all you need to say. So we need
cruisers.
We need to move on.
Battle cruisers will probably go to a different design. They'll probably go back to the 241F design.
So I'll let Fox, since Foxo seems to have the most experience. What are the British building as follow-ons in 23? What's their next 8 ships? Obviously split between battleships and battle cruisers.
Well, the Royal Navy's at a bit of an impasse because a lot of the battle cruiser proponents do not want to go to 18-inch guns. They're seen as superfluous for their role as anti-cruiser and commerce warfare vessels. The idea being, why sacrifice the rate of fire when the 16.5 is going to punch the same hole in an armoured cruiser that an 18-inch is going to punch in it?
Fair enough.
So you see it sort of steering back to sort of K3 and did anyone here play World of Warships?
Yes, but just keep moving and I'll try and fill in anyone who hasn't.
Yeah, and As anyone seen, for those of you who don't see, K3, which is an HMS Hawk in game, that's referencing K3.
Give me a moment. I will put an image in the chat.
And the Royal Navy were looking at very long, very fast, 12-inch belted, all or nothing Citadel battle cruisers.
Yeah. So a bit of extra stats. K3 is 52,000 tons at 885 feet, 144,000 shaft horsepower, mounting 3x3 18-inch.
Yeah, 3x18, then you get the 16-inch, which goes down to, I think it's 45,000 tons?
Yeah. Basically, they choose to... there was the idea of what if we use 16.5s instead.
Yeah. And essentially, the British, they, for battle cruisers, don't want the very large, almost Lexington or essentially over G3 really size battle cruisers, because they're seen as superfluous for the role. They just limit themselves too much. But they stick around to some degree. For battleships, it's actually, so you're looking at essentially sort of Rock World of Warships or Hawk, depending on if the British want to go for the 16s, because even for the arguments when the treaty collapsed, there was still very good arguments to stick with the 15 for battle cruisers.
I could see them perhaps trying a fourth turret at some point, even if it's only a one-off ship.
No, the fourth turret...
And keeping it with 16.5s. The problem is, as you said, it would result in a lengthened ship.
Because
but
the
it's
length
not
isn't
something
the issue with the battle
too
cruisers.
Scared of.
The length is because the battle cruisers are already going to be insanely long.
Yeah.
And the British know that.
So for the record, this is an extra 60 feet longer than Hood, which is already very long.
Because the issue is, especially with these designs, is they're heading that fast, that weight distribution starting to become a very limiting factor. Which is why they don't like all the turrets up front, because mathematically it causes the nose to drag and they start losing all the speed. Battleship-wise, now this is where it gets fun.
Well then.
Concern.
So, that's one design which is, what if we lengthen N3, get it up to 26 knots, and call it a day? There's also another proposal which is, what if we had a fourth turret to N3? Now, you may be thinking, like Fleet, what if we put it in the midships? You would have been laughed at out of the Admiralty design team for saying that. Because do you know what they decided they wanted to go with?
I have a bad feeling about this.
An aft turret.
Honestly,
that's better than I was thinking.
Makes sense.
I was genuinely expecting you to say 3 turrets for 1 amid.
No, that makes sense. That genuinely makes sense.
No, Dragon, that comes later. There's also a proposal to put 3 turrets up front and 1 aft.
That's still not the worst.
Exactly.
What about HMS Incomparable? Laughed out the office.
She's not even worth the paper.
Incomparable would not even... could be, potentially, but just not in this situation anymore. Like, this is long past her day.
It's more of a case that the 20-inch gun surplus requirements.
Yeah.
You don't need it yet.
Depending on what happens here, they might, depending on how things develop, they might have to look into it again.
Bear in mind,
if things do keep getting to these stupid levels.
Bear in mind, there will likely be a capital ship with 20-inch guns from each of the belligerents, but we'll get to that later, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah, I feel that's a mid-war thing.
No, it will be, but you'll see why when we get to it.
But
to continue. The one thing the Royal Navy hated about the N3s, especially going into the 20s as a design, is they hated 23 knots. Because they saw it as too fucking slow.
So
multiple different speeds.
So basically, you've got the N3s that can work with the Rs, What you now need is something that could do 24, 25 knots to work with the Queen Elizabeths, if not be faster than them.
Faster is ideal, but sort of can drop down to their speed if needed.
Yeah.
To form.
No, because if you want to go by what the Royal Navy thinking at the time was, Royal Navy thinking at the time wasn't to have ships that work with the old fleet. They were looking at a new model fleet.
Okay, well, problem is that
new battle cruisers, new speed. Oh no, I'm just talking about historically here.
No, I get that. But with that in mind, then, what are we looking at in terms of? So we're looking at probably...
Realistically, the quickest solution would be the lengthened N3 to get it 25, 26 knots. That is the quickest design they can work on.
Honestly, the one I think is going to get through, because the Royal Navy did really like it, and it's kind of related through Habsburgian design lineages, that is the Royal Navy, through King George V. And that's the madmen who went, N3's cool. What if we move the superstructure forward and move the midship turret aft?
What? Whoa! Hold the fuck up. This makes...
how many? Also, for the record, speed orders. How many admirals? 1. The other 3 are already cancelled.
Yeah,
they're
the admirals were seen as obsolete on launch.
There's a reason
but
why
Hood's already built.
There's a reason why only Hood gets built.
Like, they were cancelled 1919. And if we're looking in 1922-ish, they're not going to get looked at again.
The only way you get the admirals is if Jutland goes really badly and the R and just says build them. But even then, that's.
But we've already been told World War One goes.
No, I know. I'm just saying for anyone who is an admiral, you know, that's the only way in history you get more than one admiral.
Honestly, I don't think you get more than one admiral.
Yeah,
you might,
your typical gunnery officer.
I see them looking at the.
Okay, one second. Your typical gunnery officer.
I don't think you can hear you.
We've said it multiple times. We do not. We're not answering.
No, what the fuck you're going on
questions. About? We're not answering general questions. Okay, so.
Save these for next week. Right, what are we doing with carriers? We'll get to those in a minute.
Honestly, I think Knight has the right.
There's a bit of an argument about carriers.
I think Knight has the right idea here.
Which is?
The British would go 16.5, then 18, then 20 before settling back on the 16.5. I think he's got the right idea there.
Yes, and
generally,
I think they'll stick with. I think in the end they'll be satisfied with battleships with 18s.
Yeah.
Battlecruisers with 15s.
Battlecruisers 15s or 16.5s, depending on what's needed.
15s.
16.5.
I think the British are looking at going down to 15s.
I know, but
because
I'm just thinking it depends on if they keep seeing everyone else going bigger and bigger as well. They might also go.
Yeah, if everyone else is doing 16s, 15s don't really cut it anymore.
But they do, though.
Unless we've got massive 15s.
It's also the case if you're looking at the 1545s and the 1545s, the Mark IIs. And you're also looking at the Royal Navy's going, for the role of a battlecruiser, you don't get anything from the 16-inch guns. Because well done, you can fight battleships better.
This isn't your job.
Yeah, if you're doing that, run the fuck away. And the 15s will quite happily bitch slap any other battlecruiser.
Not considering what the US might end up building.
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
No,
the US.
They will bitch that whatever the US is building.
Because it'll depend. It depends on how much armor they can manage to put on it while keeping high speed.
No, you have a triarchy of speed, armor, defense.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
But battle development, you add a times 40,000 modifier on there. You can have fast and heavily armed. It's going to have fuck all armor because you're running with the tide. The Germans fast with heavy armor.
Yeah, Foxo, it's not 1914 anymore. It's 1923.
No. Yeah, Dracula.
No longer applies.
This applies to fast battleships 20 years later.
Yes, but that's
this is literally design consideration on the Iowas.
Yes, but that's after Washington and all the derisiveness that happens there. We're talking about displacements that can just literally laugh and say, "I'll have everything, thank you."
The reason why
fleet for right.
So let me at least. let me try this one, because this is one time where I actually agree with others previously. While, yes, we can just keep going up and up and up in displacement, it makes it harder to build, and Britain does have the economy to do this, but they don't necessarily want to be building 60,000 ton. Like, they'll not want to do stuff like that, I feel.
Also makes the battle cruiser worse at its job, as the British found out with the admirals who started hitting the limit on what's practical for how big to build a battle cruiser. Because Hood, at full pelt when she was brand new, had issues with aquaplaning because of her hull design.
I do think a 15-inch 50 probably could pose a threat to whatever the US build post-Lexington, but it would not pose a threat post-South Dakota.
Sorry, not post-Lexington, you mean whatever's after the post-Lexingtons.
Well, I mean, that's what I said, the post-Lexington.
It would still,
it
would still be a serious threat to anything post-Lexington.
Yeah. No, I said
you haven't solved the physics issue.
But it won't be effective post-South Dakota.
I mean...
No, it will still be, because you haven't solved the physics issue.
True.
I mean, I feel like...
I think they stick with the 60... I think they would prefer to stick with the 16.5. If anything,
just like,
one very simple reason. Unifying the fleet's armament.
And economy of scale as well. The more 16.5-inch guns you have, the cheaper it is to build ammunition.
We'll get to that one as well.
Yeah, but the 15-inch 48 uses the same rounds as the 15-inch 42.
Yes, Foxo, but they've already got 16. They've already got 16.5-inch guns.
In this one, they'll have 16.5 being worked up.
They've already got one class of shit.
15-inch shells worked up.
Yeah, but
they do. But I think the way how I see
you're probably looking at least
by
two
the time
classes.
1930,
You're probably looking at least two classes of 16.5-inch ship, at least, maybe three.
Yeah.
Like you're probably looking at three classes.
I can see one.
I see two primarily because it's quickest. We've got a 16.5-inch gun.
We're already building them.
We've got the turrets. Next class, go.
Yeah, basically.
I can't see that though.
No, to be fair, this is entirely what this is meant to be. This is discussion of what fleet might look at.
Yeah, they're going to look at the issues of building a sort of 55,000 ton 16-inch armed battle cruiser and go, this isn't worth it. Which is what happened historically, even for the designs for if the Americans do start fucking around.
To be fair, they might instead decide to go with, instead of keep getting bigger and bigger, just go with, well, what if we build more?
I really need Dr.
But again,
Clark now.
I do personally tend to more agree with fleet. I know the Royal Navy were looking at
going back down calibers. I honestly do think,
and I think they might later.
Honestly, the next two, like 24 and 25, will probably be 15-inch armed ships.
Yes, I agree. But I think for the sake of getting something out as quick as possible, and having got the turrets worked
and
up,
it also gives
building them.
It also gives you a nice economy of scale. You've got 8 16.5-inch battle cruisers, and it means
they're interoperable.
Yeah. And you've got enough of them that it makes ammunition production economic to keep going, whereas 4 is like even 4 ships is still a little bit on the low end of economic, the scale of economic mass coming into effect.
I mean, maybe.
Because if
either way, we spent a fair bit of time on this.
They're still making ammo for the QEs.
Yes.
But the point. It's not about. Well, yeah.
Right.
It's not about making.
Both sides have made reasonable points.
It's not about making 15-inch ammunition. It's about sending a message, fleet.
You know what? I'll fucking give you. Just write that on the side of a 16.5-inch shell and fire it at the Americans.
Yeah, but then they'll get annoyed and just fire one back with something equally engraved on it.
Oh, fucking hell. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, but these are Americans.
I see the sailors on both sides being
jokes.
I know, but that's why I see them being incredibly petty.
Anyway, moving swiftly.
Moving on.
1920s America.
We've done battleships. We've done battle cruisers.
No. Yeah, so we're now.
Oh,
That's 23. 24 now. Because we've still got
probably
2
repeated
more years.
Previous year.
No. For the Americans, you're probably looking at either something with... I can see the Americans standardizing on a 23 knot speed for their battleships, as in their battleships.
Tillmans, I don't think would be considered.
No,
They're
Tillmans.
just too awkward.
And too silly. There's no point.
Yeah.
Right? What you are looking at, though, is something probably carrying 12, 18-inch guns, because the Americans will be wanting to go big and go lots, because they're trying to prove a point.
Actually, if anything, the one Tillman you might see something similar to is Tillman 4-2.
Which, although I do actually have something planned for 25, which is probably going to remove that from the equation. You'll see why.
Well,
but for now, you're looking at
4-2 because that's 15 guns and 5 triples. Just chop one of those off, and you've got a 23 knot. Well, technically, Tillman 4-2 is meant to be 25. But you can get a 23 knot. 12 armed 18-inch ship,
which is basically what this is. It's basically what this is. It's like at this point the US has grown. Like this ship is much bigger than this is not an emergency 18-inch build like the previous year's ship was. This is a fully mature ship armored against its own guns, with most of the extra displacement going into armor and firepower.
I don't see it being armed again. I don't see it being armored against its own guns. I'll be honest. To do that, you're having a lot of issues if you're going to try and achieve this.
It's only an all or nothing scheme. It's only armored against its own guns around a magazine box. So you're talking about magazine box against its own guns.
But if we're talking
and at this scale, that's a massive fucking armored box.
Yeah, but it's
look. I think this ship you would genuinely be looking 60,000+ tons.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're probably right.
But I don't think we get there in 2 years. I don't think you go from 40-odd thousand tons to 60,000 tons in 2 years.
You do realise that it's not 40-odd thousand tons, it's 48, 49,000 tons on both sides of the Atlantic. So we're already well on the way towards... And we've already probably...
an extra 10,000 tons in a year.
Last year's ships were... Like, 23 ships were probably already pushing 54, 55,000 tons.
Yeah, they're also right on the limit of the infrastructure that can build them.
Yeah, but, well...
we're going to have to be making fully specialist dockyards.
We're talking... So much unique stuff. We're talking... Yeah. They need dedicated engraving docks to build these motherfuckers.
You're also now going to need to look into how do you make an armor slab big enough for this?
You're probably looking at...
Because armor production's going to start becoming a problem as well.
I know, but then again, the things will stretch. Like, this is the thing. It's not...
It's why I just don't see this necessarily in 24. This would maybe more be looking like something they would look at in 26-ish, I would think.
Well, no, 25 is the 20-inch ship. Right. Like, 25 is the 20-inch ship.
I don't think
I see the exact opposite happening. Right, Fleet, can I just say, I see the exact opposite happening. With the ships get smaller, but much more optimized for what they are.
Or just get more of them.
The problem is that's not as impressive.
It's just...
That's not as impressive.
Right, yeah, but if you go, mass is impressive.
Going from, say, 50, well, say we'll go with your thing of like 54,000 ton, 18-inch armed ships. Instead going, we're going to build 10 of these ships of an improved design where it's much more efficient. We've worked out the kinks. This is the mature version of that, and we're building 10.
The problem is that then takes away from US battlecruiser construction that year.
I don't actually see the US. I don't think the US actually invest that heavily in battlecruisers. Keep in mind, the Lexingtons. No, they don't. They don't need them. The Lexingtons were a bit of a unique foray. They will have realized, oh god, this is not how we build a battlecruiser.
Yes.
They build the second generation one.
Yeah, and then the third realized, generation after that.
I would still think by that point they're starting to probably question: do we need battlecruisers, or can we more go back to?
If they want to fight the British Empire, and Dr. Clock has said this before, the US is going to be building battlecruisers.
Also, as AMC's Ward's pointing out, they're going to be able to build on both coasts and both Gold Port. The counterpoint is you're also now going to... The counter to that, Woods, is you now actually have to defend both coasts as well, though.
You do realise...
Because you have enemies on both sides.
And I would point out that the US is probably going to be like naval designs don't appear out of nowhere. You're probably looking at the investment in plant and machinery, forging technology, and dockyards being
but that don't
taking
materialize
place
overnight.
It doesn't.
That's going to take more than a year to.
No, I'm aware of that.
But
This is why it probably started in
stuff
22.
like small tubes took like 12 years, even in an arms race, to mature to technology enough that people are willing to use it.
Yes, but Foxo,
Battleships?
we're not talking about something as revolutionary as small tube boilers. We're talking about increasing the thickness of armor plate, the size of a dry dock, and the caliber of a gun. It's not the same as small tube boilers. You're talking about things that can take that can be reasonably accomplished by industry with the sort of funding levels we're talking in 2 to 3 years. And this development will have started when everyone walked from Washington. Because bear in mind, industry will be ahead of what the Navy wants in anticipation of orders. They always are.
Point one thing out,
but okay. But the issue is you're starting to run into the physical limits of metallurgy of the time. It doesn't matter that industry's normally a couple of years ahead. If they look at what the Navy wants and goes, we physically can't make boilers that can withstand this pressure reliably for the time needed for a ship to operate. And that is an issue the British, when consulting Vickers, were running into with their battle cruisers. You're starting to hit the limits of what our metallurgy can give you for these boilers.
Well, I'm not talking about battle cruisers, I'm talking about battleships that are doing 23
but if
knots.
you want a bigger battleship,
you're going to need more boilers, more better engines to put behind it.
Yes, but it's not going to come. It's not going to come anywhere near the sort of metallurgical limits you're talking about. It's not like we're going to 80,000 tons.
It is though, Flea.
No, it isn't, Foxo. You're vastly overstating the increase.
Let me explain why. Because a lot of the battle cruisers had citadels, designed citadels for the British that were longer than a lot of dreadnoughts. To armor these ships against their own guns, you're going to need for the amount of power you're getting, a very small area so you can armor against its own guns. You've got small volumes of space to work with. You've got a ship that's not particularly hydrodynamic. Efficient.
Because that's a massive.
They have to.
That's a massive assumption.
Because.
This is all a massive assumption.
But this is sort of linear of battleship development. Dreadnoughts are tended, until the fast battleship, to be significantly less hydrodynamically efficient than battle cruisers, because they have to be much shorter and much wider.
I'll grab you the question, Moe.
I am aware of that. However, you're also not asking the ship's machinery to push this ship through the water at a speed that is causing a ridiculous amount of hydrodynamic pressure and demanding a massive amount of horsepower.
Here you go, Moe.
It's not even. They're not even asking for 25 knots. We're asking for 23. Like this is where I think your argument falls flat, Foxo. If I was asking for
necessarily the problem.
Yeah, if I was asking for a ship that could do 20, 25, 26 knots carrying 12, 18-inch guns, that would perhaps be you'd be pushing it at that point. But since power demand scales exponentially with speed, even shaving just 3 to 4 knots off this hypothetical 1924 US battleship brings it within the realm of possibility for the USN to build a class of 6 of them.
Which I would agree with until you specified that they had to protect against their own guns.
Only over a small part of their citadel. Literally, they are defending their magazines. And the areas over their magazines, and that is it. It's not even... You're not even talking a full citadel being immune to 18-inch shellfire. You're talking the bits where shells might, if they penetrate, go into the magazines. Because protecting an entire citadel against 18-inch shell fire in this period is practically impossible.
Right. With what you're saying, now you've specified it only those areas and not the entire citadel, which you said before.
I said
work.
I said a mag box. That's what I said.
I think if you still think a mag box is going to be...
You said a all or nothing style citadel.
Oh, sorry. Did you not hear the specification about a mag box? I did say that afterwards.
No, you
because when I said the mag box, I went all or nothing citadel plus a mag box.
Oh no.
Which no,
no,
you're not getting that until Forty's machinery made.
No, sorry. The mag box was the specification. That was a change. So there we go. We're all right then. We're all on the same page. She's still going to have other armor, probably designed to resist 16.5-inch guns across the rest of a citadel.
Well, then you're running back into that issue.
I don't think they can make it. The problem is, I don't think they really.
You're still looking at like 16 inches of belt for that fleet.
Yeah. Well,
British predictions.
So
belt.
Are you telling me that no ships of this period can resist their own guns? You're telling me that none of the Washington Naval Treaty... Well, to be fair, the US standards are...
What it says, the British ones can't. It's openly admitted in N3's design she can't resist her own guns. Neither can G3.
Oh, well, in that case, then, I have no problem in them not resisting their own guns, then, if no one's designing their ships to resist their own guns. I do wonder why they're even fitting armour in the first place, then.
Because they're designing their guns to resist the last generation of gun. N3s are designed to resist the 16.5, which is the reason why the British bite the bullet and go for that weird gun layout, because that gives you the most effective armored citadel.
So with that in mind, then, this ship should be designed to resist the US 16-inch gun. Whereas the previous design of emergency US 18-inch ships were designed to resist the 14-inch gun, because they were literally just South Dakota 20, but with twin 18s. This ship is designed to resist the 16-inch 50 as what it's designed to resist.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, so we're fine with that. In terms of battle cruisers...
Unless you're German. Then if you're German, that changes.
Yeah. But that's the Germans who are currently not relevant at this point. In fact, they're
sitting crying in a corner of what's going on.
In terms of battle cruisers for the 1924 build cycle, I actually do think Foxo was right, but not in the way she thought, not in the way she intended. I personally believe that the US battle cruisers for the 1924 cycle will basically look at the previous design with its 9 16-inch guns and go, yes, this was nice and all, but I think they'll basically come to the same conclusion the British did. So they'll be the ones to make the jump first, rather than the British. Like, the British will assume, because of the US building the... Actually, no, hang on, 24. Because the US will have built the 16-inch ships, which is why the British will have stuck with 16.5s for the follow-ons to the G3s. The US in 24 will then drop down to probably a ship which is much faster, probably regaining the plus 30 knot speeds of the Lexingtons, but carrying and being able to resist 9 14-inch 50 caliber guns. Basically, the US is doing first what the Foxo says the British were going to do, which is drop down to a proper battle cruiser. What do you think? That would be my thinking.
Much thinking going on here.
It makes sense. It's just...
Wow. Something Fleet said made sense. Dear God.
I'm just thinking, because it doesn't really make sense for the Americans to do. Because the operating environment for the American battle cruisers is going to have to deal with British battleships. So the deterrence of the 16-inch guns trying to be resistant to them makes sense.
God, not that thing, friends. That thing is an abomination, I have to admit. And thankfully, that's not what we're dealing with. Constellation would be built as a standard Lexington.
Oh god, are they bringing up that?
Yeah,
thing?
they're bringing the warships, standardized, refit, torpedo bulge out Lexington class.
Like, we're not even going to get to that. Like, we're not even going to get to that, because that's basically some sort of weird timeline where the Second World War happened as normal. Cease. What was the problem, Foxo? Because you were acting like you had problems with my thinking there about a 9-14-inch armed, resistant to its own guns across an all-or-nothing citadel, capable of about 30 to 31-ish knots.
The issue is that
semblance at least, friends.
Because the only issue I can really see with that, to poke holes in your argument, is the American battlecruisers will be expecting to come into contact with British battleships, whereas the theatres are designed for the British battlecruisers won't be.
So, okay, so what you're saying is the US should. So instead, I need to go with an expanded or perhaps a repeat, just refined version of the previous year's battlecruisers. So 916s, perhaps using the extra displacement to add additional armor or additional speed.
Yeah, try and up the speed to 30 knots.
Yeah.
But just have the guns needed to deter the British battlecruisers and the British
older battleships. Okay. Yeah. So we're only going up by a knot from 29 to 30. Do we have a bit of room in the displacement for a little bit more armor? Seeing as we're keeping the armament the same.
It depends who wins, basically. It depends who wins. People arguing for more speed, or ones who argue for more, what's it called? Speed. Basically, it's speed versus armor, and who wins. And judging by previous ships,
if the Americans figure out what the British are building.
Yeah, if
they figure out the British are building, they're gonna go for more speed.
No one in the US doctrine at the time was arguing for.
We're well past the part where any form of historical doctrine has any influence at this point. We are past.
No, it still would.
Yeah, but we're well past the point where speed is the defining factor of USN battlecruiser construction, because we have moved away from the Lexington style of battlecruiser. The follow-on to the Lexingtons was in this timeline is a ship of 9 16-inch guns carrying 29 knots and with some reasonable armor. Basically because they need them as
realizing Lexingtons get pummeled.
Yeah, Moe, they already have.
They can't do an unarmored design, basically.
Yeah, we've already got the 6 Lexingtons. This is the follow-on from the follow-on. To the Lexington. So the follow-on to the Lexingtons in this timeline we're working on is 9 16-inch guns, 29 knots. Slightly more heavily armoured. The follow-on from that is a 31-knot ship, which is basically the same as the previous one, just with more speed. It's basically walking back towards the speeds the US wanted, but with a realization that, they need to be able to deter the British battlecruisers. The Lexington is not going to deter, because the Lexingtons are basically just pinatas for any RN battlecruiser that finds them, if they choose not to run.
As long as it's not, say, Tiger or Renown and Repulse.
Yeah, those are the only fights that a Lexington can perhaps walk into and maybe win. Maybe. So this is basically...
I won't put past the lucky hits, or just look at the draw.
Yeah, but overall... So 1924 for the British. This is by basically settling on a 31 knot version of the. So that's the 6 of them. Yeah, Moe, but the difference is... Yeah, but...
Moe's points are valid.
Why would they change? Because it's one thing to build 6 ships of a class like that with preconceived notions. It's entirely another to... The US had admitted during the construction of the Lexingtons that they had made design decisions that were perhaps flawed. Like, they have to change. They can't build a repeat to the Lexingtons that's the same ships
we
again.
See they have to change. They might not at the time.
Well, I refuse to have the USM be made up of admirals that are so short-sighted, when it's not.
Well, yes and no. They kind of were when it came to battle cruisers, because they had no experience with battle cruisers.
Yeah, but I physically cannot think of a follow-on to the Lexingtons in any way that is in any way of a similar lineage to them. It makes even without hindsight, as a USN admiral, I'm thinking, what do you build to follow on from the Lexingtons? More speed? 37 knots with the same armor and armament?
Either more speed or more gun.
At that point, you've basically built 12 useless capital ships.
That's what they were going to do with the Lexingtons, though.
Well, they're going to build 6 useless capital ships, but...
But then if they did do a follow-on, they probably would have continued with more speed. That is the US battle cruiser doctrine at the time.
The problem I've got...
Even if it's not necessarily great, in hindsight, at the time it made some sense to them.
Yeah, but I don't...
Because remember,
they're already reconsidering...
Also, when the Omahas exist to act as a scout cruiser.
They're already reconsidering the Lexingtons as battle cruisers, as they're thinking about what's to follow them. And if I give them 12 Lexingtons, or things following on from the Lexingtons, I could basically just end this entire question here and say the RN and the Japanese wipe the ever-living shit with the USN easily and win the war, because the British because the British battle cruisers laugh hysterically while wiping the Lexingtons off the face of the earth. And I'm not going to do that.
At that point, there's nothing to... At that point, there won't be anything to contradict them. And good luck keeping shipping lanes open when there's a bunch of heavy surface raiders. And you don't have anything to counter them.
I do think Dracoon Reaper's got a decent idea for what could follow on, which would be a 3x3 design. Which is actually optimized.
That's literally what I said.
But you gave it more armor. As in, this one probably would not. It would be more designed around its top. Keeping that speed.
I suppose...
Keeping the armor... Yeah.
Well, to be fair, when I said more armor, I meant resistant against 13.5-inch guns. So 10 inches of armor. The reason that it's...
only really 9-inch, to be honest.
Yeah, but the point is...
Then again, if you've got 9-inch, you're going to need 8-inch at range. And let's be real, what British battleship... Big actually have gunnery range on these things? So you only really need to protect against the 8-inch cruisers that can get in close.
What 8-inch cruisers?
But at that point,
Oh, they do.
Well, technically, yeah, they do technically.
Anti-class was designed 22.
Yes, yeah. After Washington.
Nope, before.
But then again, Fleet, don't you know the Lexingtons, their 16-inch guns will be able to take out any cruiser that tries to get close. So they have to worry about the light cruisers and the destroyers.
Okay, all right. Knight,
I think it's just a different thing.
Knight, it's not that we're not asking these questions, just we're working through chronologically.
Yeah. And it's just the case. The US are very much like...
we have to get to these things, alright? We can't just skip straight to the things people want to hear about, because that doesn't do the question justice.
Nisa looks at battle cruisers.
Looks at how many people have said, what about carriers so far?
We're not there yet! Angry
it's not going to be as big a part of this as you think.
I don't think it could be, but...
It's not going to be World War II style carrier battles.
Me and Rex actually discussed this in a ramblings that was sadly not recorded. I've actually already covered the air components of a war like this. However, unfortunately, it was not recorded, and I can't get hold of Rex. But it means I do have a good idea of how the war will look in the air. It probably will have to be 2 parts, honestly, to be fair. It'll probably have to be 2 parts, to be fair, given how this is actually going. But just to move on quickly. So I think I will change my mind. So 23 and 24. So the 23 battlecruiser is a 31-knot ship with 9 16-inch guns that's armored to resist 13.5-inch shell fire. And the follow-on ship after that is basically the same ship again, but just with more armor to resist 15-inch shell fire. Basically, the US are keeping the speed, keeping the firepower, but stepping up the armor every time they go up. There, that makes Moe happy. So, now for the British in 1924. Battleships?
Repeat.
Probably a repeat, otherwise we're getting out of the realms of really...
Yeah, the British are at the limits of how big they can build. So it's a repeat.
Okay, so that's a repeat of whatever it was last time, which was a... Actually, well, no. It'll probably be a reworked design, because the thing we went with last time was the N3 with the rear turret. So this time it'll probably be something slightly different.
Or it'll be really cursed, and it'll just be Conqueror from World of Warships, but World War One-ified.
No.
No, it
What?
wouldn't be.
QE style Queensman's Ancient?
No, it wouldn't
2 turrets
be.
fore, 2 turrets aft?
No, it wouldn't be. It would, because remember we're working with triple 18s.
Right. If Lee wants that, the only way you're seeing that is 4x 220s.
Yeah,
Oh,
the only way you-
Thunderer.
and I'm sorry, but that's the...
And that's beyond Thunderer.
No, like the 4x20s...
Thunderer's 18's
Yeah,
boxer.
the 4x...
Conqueror's 16.5.
The 4x20 is the 1925 design for both navies.
No.
No.
US wouldn't, but I don't think the US bothers with a 20-inch gun.
No, they will.
They already weren't happy with the 18 and its performance.
No, you seem to forget it's not just about... The problem we have to remember is that we do like to think in terms of practicality and what's best for the navies and everything else. It's important to bear in mind that that's not the only things at play here, especially not when you're dealing with a qualitative and quantitative race. It's not just about what's best.
You're forgetting the Hitler principle, Dragon.
And bear in mind, this also applies to democracies as well. It's not just
but also,
the
View Order
dictatorship
at this point's going, right, where's this bloody person who's doing this? I need to go and shoot them.
Doesn't matter though, still going to happen. And since it'll have to be being occurred in 1924 that this is going to happen, if the British get wind of it, they'll go 20 as well.
I think Britain's the one who goes 20 first because they've got more designs for it.
Moe, they will.
Britain actually has at least... No, I genuinely don't think... Because, right, the 20-inch gun is theoretically available in 1915. Theoretically. Practically, this is probably about the time it does start becoming possible.
Yeah, Moe...
Britain at least has the design lineage to work a 20-inch gun up from the 18s and 16.5s.
Yeah, you're probably right.
The US doesn't.
Yeah, you're probably right. The 20-inch gun is probably the US immediate World War design, as in the design that's laid down either just prior to the outbreak of war, or basically once they realise what the British are doing. Because we're in a qualitative race.
The British because have a 20-inch gun by World War II. Admiral. They have a working 20-inch gun. Yeah, by World War One. It's just because when this is impractical, it's too fucking heavy.
You know how hard it is to build this bloody thing?
The Royal Navy went to Vickers and wait, you the one who wants to sell us dumb shit is telling us this is too dumb for you to sell to us? Jesus fucking Christ.
Like, the loading time on that thing would be horrific.
Yeah, in orbital conditions, it had a 340-second reload.
Now, I mean, at least some of these problems might be rectified by this point, but it's still probably looking at 2 to 3 minute reload.
And this is mounted with battleship equivalent gun rammers. So it wasn't a shell ramming or loading issue.
It's potentially practical. It's just very limited practical.
Because all I can see is Vic is looking at the Royal Navy going, the fuck are you trying to get us to do? No. And Newport Arsenal going, the fuck are you trying to get us to do? No, we can't do it. Because, I mean, the Vickers 20-inch gun in testing had a 36-shot lifespan.
No, Wellesley.
Isn't great.
Wellesley, you're looking at...
A 2-minute reload is something they would actually probably accept with a 20-inch gun.
Honestly, yeah, because bear in mind, you're looking at...
The issue is you were looking at about 3.5 minutes, though.
Before World War One. I'm
Yeah,
giving it 10 plus years of development. You might at least have some. It will be quicker, but it won't be quick.
Yeah, but
You're
it's also more of the issue that barrel life.
I'm
yeah.
thinking
These
I'm
guns
probably still
had
thinking 2 minutes.
Yeah, these are 36-shot barrels, and then they're unsafe to fire.
I mean,
Agreed.
I will point out that
Which
we're
would be
talking...
something I would hope to be looking into.
I will point out that these 20-inch ships are talking about... How do I put this? We're talking about ships that are very much prestige projects by the governments involved, and the navies aren't.
Who in the USN cares
particularly
about practical? Not the USN. It's Buord that cares.
It's Buord, it's the actual admirals who are fighting.
Because by this point, they're probably still going. So at this point, they would realize, yeah, the Congress is gunning us up for a fight with Britain. I don't want to be here right now.
Okay, right. The people might think it's a good idea. The politicians might think it's a good idea. To outfit every US Marine, instead of an M16, he carries an M60 50 cal converted M16 to battle. 50 cal, big bullet, much good, much kill.
The Bureau of Ordnance, by the way, Collingwood.
You then have everyone involved go, you're being a dumbass, stop it. We won't accept this into service.
Not talking about auto-loading and automation. You will be having refinements in, and I will clarify what I'm saying here. You will have refinements in the charging, hoist, ramming systems of naval guns as the caliber increases. You will have that refinements as we go forwards, but it's not what we would traditionally refer to as auto-loading. Although, funnily enough, the Mark 14s will actually work, because the funding will be available to test them when they're created. So that's the funniest thing about this timeline. I just realised that.
No, they won't, because the Mark 14 was developed in the 30s.
No, it wasn't.
No, also, Admiral,
no, it wasn't.
I will point out
the one that we're most familiar of, the Mark 14, the torpedo we know of, starts development January 1931, allocating $143,000
Oh, never mind. I thought it was earlier than that. Never mind.
Nope. Because this is the reason why it ends going so badly is because there's been the crash.
No money.
They've got one factory left making torpedoes in the entire country.
You do realise that was after the White was winded down.
We have already mentioned.
Yeah, that's already happened, Moe. That's already happened. That was the previous generation. That's the generation of battleships we just talked about. The 24.
Basically, think N3 with 4x3 18-inch, 2, 4, 1 a mid, 1
Knight 681 says, yeah, but the Royal Navy will find a way. This is the RM we're talking about. Innovation is what they do best. You physically cannot automate battleship reloading more than it already is at this point. There is no way with the technology available you can do it. And no, Foxo, I don't care about your bullshit auto-loader.
Designs of the time. According to Vickers' design, in 1928, if you put 2 guns in an enlarged triple turret, and you're willing to tell ammunition safety to go fuck itself, and you're willing to give the turret Jesus Christ amounts of electrical power, you can get a fully automated reload. Will it be reliable? No.
Well, it's not practical either.
Does it turn the turret into a massive bomb? Because the sensors required to make the autoloader don't exist yet. Yes.
You are not getting a autoloader. You might be getting auto reloading or assisted loaders.
Yeah, you'd get assisted
but not an
loaders.
autoloader.
Because Vickers made this autoloader in the late 20s to prove it couldn't be done with current technology.
And it can't be done.
But it can be.
The Royal Navy's using
that's
automation to reduce...
That's actually one of...
Knight 6831
Hollywood
says
will get to that.
The Royal Navy's using automation to reduce crew numbers. Not the
same level.
Not in the same way that Dr. Clark talks about in World War II and post-World War II. This is 1924.
No. But interesting, automation is being used in a similar way.
It is, but not
It's just
but not
doing
to the
stuff
same
like
level.
It's like sort of the modern day is automating the stuff to maintain the automation of the past.
That was covered previously, Drac-Room. Where are the Admiralty getting the funding for this?
Imperial preference.
Basically, slightly changing Imperial preference, and also
not paying down the debt.
Also, the Admiralty has already. This is something I don't like, and this came up in the chat earlier, where people keep saying Britain was completely broke, couldn't afford to do anything. No, Britain paid for 4 battle cruisers and 4 battleships to be laid down. They were on the books, money in hand. They had the capability to keep doing this.
They had already paid Vickers for the guns.
And I will point out, they are still paying
which is an
down
absolute
the debt.
steal for Vickers.
Yeah, and they are already paying down the debt while doing this.
I do think people massively overassume Britain's state of economy in World War One.
And I will point out...
It is nothing comparable to Britain's state of economy post-World War II.
And I will point out...
That was where the problem is.
And I will point out, this is with the caveat that the British economists and chancellors of the exchequer during the interwar period, basically up to and including... up to when Chamberlain takes power as chancellor of the exchequer, don't quite shoot themselves and the economic growth of the country in the foot, but do make decisions that stick to these lovely ideals of free trade and everything else, but massively hurt the rate at which the economy could have recovered by not rapidly adopting imperial preference in the aftermath of the World War I. In this scenario, where the US is making it clear where its cards lie and what its plans are, by doing what it did to the Washington Naval Treaty in this timeline, the British are going to go, yep, alright, imperial preference, let's do it.
They have basically told Britain, we are coming for your empire and your economic potential. Effectively. Saying, we want to be more powerful than you, we want control over it, we want to basically be the most important thing in the world. Britain's basically there, yeah.
Essentially, this America wants America's modern position.
But still running. After World War II, well, yeah, keep in mind, in World War II, the US literally marched into the last gold reserve the British had and told them, we're taking your last ounces of gold. Then went after the war, oh, what happened to your economy? You're having communist leanings. How did you let this happen? Just a lot of people turns to look at them angrily.
Anyway, so
who would have guessed?
So now this is the interesting
bit. Continuing on the previous thing, probably design improvements.
Yeah, so you're probably looking at something with 9 18-inch guns,
or 12 potentially. At most.
I'm thinking you go for the 9, you see a move towards a faster battleship.
I would tend to personally agree, but it all depends on what they want to do with the rest of it. I personally would like to see a 28 knot battleship.
Well, bear in mind we have to lock things in. So for me personally, I'm putting
a tech's not there yet.
It is.
I said faster. I said faster, not fast.
Yeah, you're looking at 26 knots for what the ships at that scale can do.
Yes,
that protection.
That's what I want. That's exactly what I want.
Yeah, I was talking about Dragon going for 28 knots. Like, no.
So basically,
that is still very much you're building a battle cruiser that looks like a battleship.
Yeah. Problem: the USA hates imperial preference. Yet Knight, we know they hate imperial preference. Here's the thing: they've already said we're coming for your ass.
Yeah, and it was the US. It was negotiations around Washington that got Imperial preference dismissed.
Because in this timeline's Washington, the US said, we demand to be 120% the size of the RN, always and forever. Which basically laid the US.
And this was our decision, this was the guy who posed the question.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
So the US has laid its cards on the table very fucking clearly about what's going to happen in the near future. Because that was basically the US saying, this is your last chance to submit and keep your empire. Basically.
Because remember, this is Wilson's second term. See. Anyone? Oh fuck, I just realised I said Woodrow Wilson around Moe. Please don't kill me. I have a dumbass boyfriend who needs to be controlled.
I think it's the other way around, but anyway. But moving on. So I'm locking in. So currently we have N3 with same speed but 4 turrets, and then Steve, different Congress. Hawkish.
Yeah, this is a Congress controlled by Wilson.
And Wilsonists, but even more extreme
this
than
is
him.
Wilsonian.
Even more extreme.
America.
Even more Wilsonian. In fact, more extreme than that. You're talking about an interventionist, nationalist, supremacist Congress. Oh no, Steve, no, he is. He is in control. Well, someone. Well, it doesn't matter who's in control. The point is, a U.S. Congress is
Wilsonian. It's what if America stayed
extreme
Wilsonian?
Wilsonian, Foxo. Extreme Wilsonian.
I wouldn't call this extreme Wilsonianism. This is peak city on a hill.
Right, keep in mind also, the reason why this has to happen is because otherwise...
That's the question.
There's no question.
There's no scenario.
Yeah,
because otherwise Britain and America
have no reason to go to war.
Don't go to war in the 20s. There's absolutely no reason to want to have war in the 20s.
Yep, so that was the question.
The only other one that was thought up was a very strange one involving British Petroleum launching a coup in Mexico.
Which made absolutely no sodding sense.
It's possible.
It's possible because...
But then the British government goes, not our fault, take them over, it's not up to us, don't declare war.
Yeah, because British Petroleum did do
AMC, I'm sorry, we are... Well, first of all,
no,
AMC, your question didn't get any votes.
Which question?
Yeah, your question didn't get any votes for starters. And... I don't think we're going to get to anything else.
Right. Perhaps it might be a racist city, but again, it's the only way that it can be done is that basically some sort of change has happened in the US Congress to make them want to be more the world power now.
I really don't care who's running the US government, only that it does what I need it to do to get to the point where the war is declared. I genuinely couldn't care less.
This entire thing is based off Wilsonianism and his idea of America strong, America should be the shining city on a hill, and all should bow before America, which ran hard face first into reality after World War One, when Europe went nanny the fuck.
The thing is, though,
America backtracked Wilsonianism.
The problem is, Moe,
this timeline,
as much as that might have been more amusing, the British don't want to refuse paying their debt. It's actively government policy currently is pay off the debt.
Yeah, here's the thing.
I don't know why it's. Do you know why it's policy for the British?
Yeah, Steve. Steve.
We get this.
We don't care. We don't care who's running the US. It doesn't matter. In fact, it's a moot point. I literally don't care who is running the US because it doesn't benefit. It doesn't benefit or matter to the scenario. Because to be blunt, I'm making
at that point we need an expert in American history and politics.
Yeah, and also
I'm a battlecruiser nerd.
Yeah,
and I work in engineering.
US politics than actually a potential scenario.
Yeah, it's all about the military sides of the scenario and some of the economics involved. It's not about who's leading either side. The only time politics... the only time politics enters into it is the elections in 1928. And potentially the midterms in 26. And that...
Yes, anyway, moving on again. We'll also, Sea Otters, we'll get there. I promise, we'll get there.
We'll get there. It's only 20-9.
I saw Clark in that guy's game and went, "Oh shit!" But then I
No,
realized
wrong
it's
Clark,
not
different Clark.
Yeah.
Thank God Clark's not here because we probably have
We shot it, but
well, we probably have to backtrack and do it all again.
Well, you see, thing is, you'd all be shot. I get women and children preference.
Have a good
so
evening,
I
then,
won't be
Timo.
shot.
Night, Timu.
Oh, is that it? Or is that you saying that? Oh, right. Either way.
Oh, that's a point. Well,
Mhm.
Night. We know Woodrow dies on 3rd of February 24.
No,
But
you mean not all?
Well, okay. When does FDR get paralyzed?
I don't know. I don't think that matters either. But because he might be the person that takes the US out of the war, possibly. In fact, it's probably quite likely that he takes the US out of the war in 28, most likely. So what I will say, so anyway, moving on. Interesting bit. RN Battle Cruiser, 1924. Is this where the RN moves to 15
Probably a
again?
repeat. Possibly down to 15, or just keep a repeat going.
It's a repeat.
It's war, since this is run up to war, you just have to keep something simple.
So it's another
Yes,
No,
16 and a half.
World War One happened the same way it did
16 and a half.
historically.
It's going to be 3x3, 16 and a half, 24, 25 knots. 12-inch bell.
24, 25
It's
knots.
just going to... No, sorry, 35. I said 34, 35.
There we go.
As in the actual performance spec proposed for...
To be fair, Steve, the
Eagle
British,
K3.
were looking to step down to 15. But at this point they can't. They're locked in.
Yeah, it's a case of... You'd probably see war builds to 15s, but it's a case of 16s.
Because here's the thing.
The Royal Navy will just want to replace their existing fleet with these.
Yeah. So 16.5s and 18s are rapidly proliferating across the fleet. By this point, you're looking at...
And you might actually see the battlecruisers start to get smaller, though.
Possibly. 8, 16.5.
Because you're definitely going to see the dropping of the... You're going to see the dropping of the 6-inch mixed secondaries.
Oh no, Japan's involved. Yes, Steve. We've already.
Japan will be getting involved when we get to that in a moment.
Yeah,
Collingwood.
like
there's a lot of
we're going to work.
Japan's the only one we've actually got a lot more info on what they were planning on building.
And also
It's a bit easier for us to work with then.
And also to do Japan's battleships and battle cruisers, it's better to go through what the USN and the RN are building because Japan has to counter both. So it's better for the audience to have both. You know. Yeah, nothing in Europe changes. Europe just is not involved and does not care.
Well, France is going to be looking, going, please don't hurt us, America.
Not
We're
again.
not doing this
Not
war
again.
for you, but we're not getting involved in this. We've lost 20% of our population.
No, Moe, it's not.
Oh no,
about-
agreed, Moe. They don't have the money to deal
No,
with both,
it's-
but they at least want designs that might be able to work against each other at some point.
Now, France is just crying in a corner at this point because they've got mass employment shortages, they've got no economy,
They're still
and
rebuilding
everyone's
the country.
dead.
Yeah.
And large portions of northern France are completely uninhabitable thanks to the Germans. Chemical warfare.
Yippee.
You love to hate it.
And also just artillery shells in general. But mostly, yeah. At this point, Britain is just building repeats with incremental design upgrades, I feel. While they're probably preparing infrastructure for bigger, but
Okay,
It's
are
not
not
there yet.
looking at
probably, yeah, you're probably looking, the biggest change is they're going to end the split secondary battery and go with the uniform... Would it be uniform 5-inch or 4-inch?
Well, the thing
At this
is,
point.
we're way too early to end the split secondary battery. We're way too early for that.
No, the Royal Navy were looking at it with these ships, so that's the thing.
Yeah,
keep in
but
mind
problem
that stuff like G3 and N3 were also looking at more unifying a secondary battery.
Yeah, but
They were looking at unifying on 6-inch.
Oh, you don't mean a dual-purpose battery. You mean a
No,
Right,
way too
okay.
early for that.
Right. Okay, I understand. Okay.
They're basically going from
'Cause-
primary, secondary, tertiary down to just basically primary and secondary.
Yeah, because the British sort of realised that it becomes hard to aim with the secondaries if they're that close in caliber.
Makes sense.
And this is before you get stuff like colour shot. So, would they go for the 4-inch or 5-inch though for the battle cruisers is the question. I don't think the 5.25 exists yet, does
No,
it?
5.25 is not around at this point. Like, the 5.25 is a 30s development, as I recall.
So you're probably looking at 4.7s. They're the same
More than
ones
likely, yes.
Which is going to be nasty if anything gets into secondary.
I see not as suggesting the 5.5s, possibly, but I think they'd probably either go with the 6-inch or 4.7s.
Yeah.
Yeah, the issue is the 6-inch have been deemed too
Keep
big,
in mind,
and if I remember correctly, the
keep in mind, G3 and
5.5's going...
Keep in mind, G3 and N3 did use the 4.7-inch, so they will have the 4.7-inch. They'll probably standardize on a twin mount.
Yeah, because if I remember correctly, the 6-inch turrets are in the similar turret, are in the proto version of what you'd see on the small 6-inch cruisers.
Yeah, Arethusa and Leanders, basically.
Yeah, and they deemed that turret and the Barbetti needed too big for
also, at this point,
the battle cruisers.
The 6-inch is not necessarily likely to engage other ships as much. While, yes, historically they did keep this... Yeah, while historically they did keep these in for longer, in this scenario, where there's the alternative ships coming along as well, they might just go, well, we don't really want our ship in secondary range to begin with. But, yeah, faster turning, faster firing. These would potentially lead later down the line to a dual-purpose mount in the 30s.
But we are a long way away from that.
Yeah, it's outside the scope, I said.
Like, we're dealing with the build-up to and the war. We're not dealing with what happens afterwards. So, where were we? 1925. US capital ship. Basically a repeat of the previous ship, carrying 8 20-inch guns in 4 twin turrets.
Again, I don't necessarily know if the US would want 20-inch, but...
Oh, the US will. The USN's got its head in its hands going, oh, fuck.
Again, they were already unhappy with the 18-inch gun that they got.
Too bad!
Yeah, but eventually the companies might just go, no, it costs us more to make this than you're paying us.
Because you'll probably get a Vickers situation, which is where Vickers went with the 20-inch.
Yeah, Steve, we know. We're not
talking about this.
We're not doing this.
No. Yeah, but I'm not talking about that Vickers going, see, we can't build this effectively.
Yeah. Britain might invest on 1 or 2 ships with 20-inch, but I don't see the US because the US will just go, well, have you heard about our new 18-inch 55 or something?
Yeah, okay,
what if we just make the 18-inch better?
Okay, yeah, so probably got an 18-inch 52, 53 is probably better than 55.
Yeah, because the 18-inch they'll be using is the 18-inch 48 already.
Well, that is it's fairly straightforward. It's a 50. It's the 18-inch 50. Yeah, that's what they'll do. It's enough of an increase to be worth it in terms of penetration power and velocity, but it's reasonable enough to come up with in 2 to 3 in a year or two.
But the reason why I'm skeptical why they necessarily want a 20-inch gun is these 18-inch guns for testing have something like a 15-shot barrel life.
I mean, obviously they will have worked out some of the kinks.
They don't like these 15. They do not like these 18-inch guns. They are too heavy, far too unreliable. And they just don't have part of the problem actually is they can't get the guns low enough because the cradle mount they'll need it limits the elevation angles. So instead of being able to get a 0, you'll be locked to say a minimum of +5. Yep, I get Steve. The problem is in basically this point in time. They already had made an 18-inch 48. So...
Moe, the 16-inch quad is a step down. There's no... it's not going to happen.
Well, no, it's a whole thing of more gun versus better gun.
Well, I think I think the US battle cruisers will probably I'll get to them. You'll see what I'm going for in a second. So the US ships will either. Honestly, you probably go half and half. You probably have 3 ships with the 18. No, sorry, 4 and 2. You'll probably have 4 battleships with the 18-inch 50s. And you'll have 2 with the 20-inch gun just to offset Congress's loud yelling and tell them to shut the fuck up. We've got your 20-inch ships, now go away and stop bothering us. As for US battle cruisers, the final pre-war design, I personally believe that you're looking at 2 quad turrets. 2 quad 16-inch gun turrets, 1 forward, 1 aft. Because what this enables the US to do is to increase the armor and pile on the speed.
Problem.
What?
Now you've got width. Battle cruisers don't like width.
Not if you've got only 2 quads, you can have them relatively close into the...
Unless you're getting a very narrow fort. No, I'm more meaning an actual quad turret's much wider than a triple.
Dragon.
You're having to redesign the hull around this.
Dragon.
If we're still going with a 16-inch gun...
Yes.
It will have to be bigger. Unless we're going to do the Italian solution...
Dragon.
Which was a terrible idea.
Richelieu.
Basically getting them super narrow. Richelieu has a very big divider. And also, note how much bigger that turret is compared to a triple.
Yes, I'm aware,
it's quite
but
a bit
they
bigger.
are still relatively slim ships. It's not...
Richelieu's not.
Richelieu's not slim.
Richelieu's fat as fuck for how far she is. And the French made a lot of sacrifices
also,
to get
always pointing out, you
far.
do still have to consider Panama at this point.
They can get a quad turret ship through Panama. It's not impossible. And also, do you really think the Panama Canal isn't being widened slightly during the...
No, I don't, because that is a hell of a lot of money and effort.
Steve, we are well past the Lexington's, mate.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is the 1925 battle cruiser. We've already had 3 generations prior to it. Sorry, 2 generations prior to this.
I still think there
one.
might be a bit of a yearly gap, potentially, but...
Okay, because the issue with the quad is...
Well,
battle cruiser really like length, which is why everyone went with twins on them. You can squeeze a triple in if you're being aggressive. It's just they really don't like width.
Okay,
also,
so
I will
fair
point out
enough.
that the Richelieu did have issues where, since the gun barrels were so close together, there was occasional issues where, if we fired them simultaneously, the backblast from the shells disrupts accuracy.
Fair enough. So we'll basically just do a 3rd repeat, except faster, which is just so. At this point, we've got 6, 12,
You basically got
18. We've got 18 battle cruisers that are basically which are basically just variants on the same ship, and then the 6 Lexingtons looking really confused, going, "What the fuck's going on?"
Yeah, I wouldn't say
I'm
you get
still
it faster.
skeptical
You
I'm
just
still
get a
skeptical
clone
they
of
would
the
want-
previous ship.
I still am skeptical they'll want a 3rd generation of battle cruisers this quickly.
They may or may not. I think it
I
comes
think
down
at
to
that
the fact the
point-
RN.
at this point,
I think
you want
it's come
spend on other things.
It's come down to the fact the RN is building 4 a year, and the 4 battle cruisers a year. So, as long as both sides are building keeping the build rate up, you're looking at both sides keeping the build rate up, because this is the thing. It's not going to stop. Well, that's relatively straightforward. UK 25. Okay, so this is where we actually do get a full class of 20-inch ships.
You might get 3x2 or at most 4x2.
4x2 is more likely.
No, you don't.
You don't.
You get 3x3.
3x3,
Maybe, but
20?
even then, I think they would prefer. I think they would still probably prefer the twin for this case, just because the guns are so big.
It would enable
are
you to get
awkward.
a roomier turret with better reloading mechanisms, Foxo.
Yeah, as I'm always pointing out, the Panama Canal has up to 35 meters beam. It would be very hard to fit a quad 16 into that.
Yeah, but we're talking about triple
Right,
18s.
okay, right.
So we're still...
Yeah, now
Right. Okay, let me explain the triple 18s. Sorry, triple 20s. Because the very few designs we have for 18-inch turrets in the Navy, they are all single gun cradles. Those are 2 to 3 guns working as one.
Yep.
They share the same elevation system. They're not independently raising and lowering.
Yeah, they're triple gun turrets rather than 3 gun turrets.
Yeah.
Which is actually the difference in naming.
Which means that the Royal Navy, as far as I'm aware, was looking at a triple turret where the guns share a cradle, while everyone else was looking at individually raising and lowering guns. Because the guns on the designs that are incomparable are single cradle. And I think they'd go for the triples because if you don't need the ridiculous amount of room for the elevation system, for 3 individual elevation systems, you can have one centralized one either side. You get the room for the 3rd gun.
Wellesley, there won't be Canadian...
Because the issue...
Sorry,
right.
Because the issue is that in the turret isn't reloading these fucking 20-inch bitches. It's elevating them. We're talking guns that are in 500, 600 tons. We're talking armor plates for their essentially elevations that are getting to ridiculous weights. So I think the Royal Navy would just centralize it on one gun cradle and get the extra gun instead.
That makes sense.
Some more vulnerable turret.
And honestly, it would enable you to actually... Like, you could fire 2 guns... Yeah, you could fire, actually. Yeah, you could do quite well there. You could actually fire... you could do half salvos relatively easily, even if it's common cradle. You fire, let's say, 3 guns forward and 3 guns aft. No, actually, never mind. It doesn't matter. Gunnery's not really important here. What matters is... so we're probably looking at 4 of these ships. Just because, again, the reason I say 4 is because it's the established ordering pattern. It's also economy of scale because of the... Oh my god, Foxo's built... I mean, never mind.
Sea-Dodders has built Hawk, basically. What was it closer to Rook, I think?
Oh god, he's got
it's closer to Rook. Yeah, it's closer to Rook.
Oh, sad fleet noises.
What? Oh, hello.
But the main reason the main reason for building 4 ships is, again, economies of scale regarding gun manufacture, spares availability of barrels, and ammunition manufacturing cost.
The one problem I have with this fleet...
Yes?
This is 8 dockyards per year being taken up, of capital ship scale.
Uh-huh.
To this point, we have now had 24 capital ship dockyards taken up in the UK.
Hello?
Britain? Yep, we can hear you. If we include this, we jump up to 32.
No.
Even going off, it takes 3 years to build these ships. That means you'll finally be getting a set of dockyards available.
First things first.
I don't know if Britain has this many capital dockyards available.
I would point out...
It's going to be pairs. It's going to be pairs, because makers are going to go, we can't build these motherfuckers.
Yeah, and I will point out, Dragon, that the dockyards are only required, as in the actual slips are only required for the first year of construction. After that, you can put the ship alongside.
More than that, probably about 2. And even then, though, even if you're putting it alongside, then you're having to split the workforce.
No. What are you talking?
Well, yeah,
do you not know how ships are built? Do you not
Yes,
understand how
I do.
capital ships
The
are
problem
built?
is,
You
though,
build them up to
we're building these at such a rate.
Yes.
There is problems.
Yeah, but Steve, I've got to point out, yards take years to build.
Dreadnought
Because
was 1
yards
year
are...
too long.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, yards take forever to build because they're essentially massive fuck-off earthworks. There's a lot of digging to make a battleship yard.
Like,
There's a lot of digging to build battle cruisers.
Like, Sea Dotters, keep in mind, we're talking 50,000-ton vessels here, which are far bigger than Dreadnought. And Dreadnought was literally stealing turrets and guns off older ships to be built quicker. And stealing whatever they could.
The Dreadnought stole from her sisters to be finished this quickly. But fun fact, of all the Dreadnoughts, Dreadnought herself had the highest death rates for construction crews. Because they were working... Because they had three construction crews that were working almost 24 hours on her. It's also why she had some defects. Because they were working at night, and lighting back then wasn't the best.
Yeah. What I will say is, we are looking at all 4 of these ships able to be built. Like, it's not going to be impossible. And I would point out that by the time we're dealing with this,
it's 2.
No, it'll be 4. The British have the space.
At this point, we've replaced the Royal Navy at this point entirely in a period of 4 years, in less than 4 years, basically.
It's going to be Vickers looking at these motherfuckers wanting all these 16-inch barrels and then trying to get them to make a 20-inch barrel and going, we can get you enough for 2 ships.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean.
Because the fleet, at this point, we're getting to Vickers' theoretical capacity. We're getting Vickers Armstrong
we're still
to
building
barrel production capacity.
We're building the 15s for the
big.
QEs, Rs, Renowns, and Hood.
I'm just going to point out
the 16.5s and the 18s. We're needing what? If we've got 9 barrels per battle cruiser for the first lot, there is already 36 barrels plus spares.
I'm just talking to Knight right now in the YouTube chat. He's saying that the QEs and the Rs will be up for replacement / in reserve by 1925. That they won't be because you've only got them.
No, they won't.
You've only got the first generation.
The Rs are out. The Rs are out.
Not yet. They're not. Not until the new ships hit the water.
When the new ships come in, they're out.
Well, no.
The
13.5s go. The 13.5s go as soon as the G3s and N3s enter the fleet.
Aside from Tiger. Aside from
Tiger,
Tiger might be kept around in second line.
I think Tiger goes to Australia to replace HMS Australia.
Potentially.
Tiger's probably going to go to India, just as an anti sort of if the Americans try a Panzer equivalent.
What basically have it lead like a Indian squadron?
Yeah.
But
the Royal Navy doesn't want to get rid of Tiger.
Yeah. So but the thing is, it's and the crew's freed up from the 13.5-inch ships.
Salty. They'll call her HMAS Emu.
The 13.5-inch ships free up crews for the G3s and the N3s. Because bear in mind, yes, they're bigger ships, and there's 8 of them, but you're getting rid of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You're getting rid of
7
13.5-inch at least.
No, 12. Orion, KGV, Iron Duke. Plus the battle cruisers.
I think they might keep the Iron Dukes around a little bit longer than the others.
No, I'm sorry. If you've got G3 and N3 coming in, Iron Dukes, the 13.5-inch battleships are surplus to requirements. Like, at that point, that's it.
They're not.
Yeah, they are.
No, because what you see... No, we have precedent for what you would see. You would see the Iron Dukes replacing the 12-inch first gens as training ships.
Oh, yes, that would make sense.
Then when the next set hit the water, 13.5s are straight up just gone.
No, they kept as training ships.
You'll keep 2. What you'll have is when the next generation hits the water, you'll have 3 of the Iron Dukes go, and the last 2 will be kept as dedicated training ships and will receive rebuilds similar to what Iron Duke received.
Yeah, because remember, the Iron Dukes have a very close... Okay, it's an earlier version
I'll be back
of
in a
the
second.
Admiralty fire control system.
To be fair,
Like-
you could have some interesting stuff. Collingwood pointed out Chilean Iron Dukes. You could potentially see them sell off a couple of ships. Chile probably would accept buying a 13.5-inch armed battleship in replace for Eagle.
Yeah. But because remember, the Iron Dukes, they have good enough fire control, even in World War One spec, which is very closely to the Admiralty table, to train for long-range gunnery. And we know the Iron Dukes are really good at long-range gunnery, because Iron Duke is the most accurate battleship ever.
Well, to be fair, Moe, the naval arms race in South America's already gone.
Yeah, because Brazil's economy went kaput, Argentina went kaput,
Argentina decided we're happy with our two.
Chile and Bolivia, Chile and Peru got into a land war.
Keep in mind, this is at the point in time where they are actually sort of going, so hey, Royal Navy, about that battleship we were promised.
Yeah, because Chile's out because of the big Peruvian, Bolivian, Chilean three-way over the northern Chilean coast. Brazil's economy went kabang, and Argentina...
They just didn't really see a need for more battleships. They were in terrible state.
Yeah.
Right. Well, yes, I personally do think they would be pretty... Because, to be fair, Moe, Chile had initially ordered 2. They then only got 1 in the end. If they were then basically offered at the previous rate to get another ship to basically, hey, now that we're swapping our ships around, we will give you this at the rate initially agreed. Could potentially work. Argentina's probably going to go, well, why do we need... Yes, they just got a ship, but it's basically we're still at parity. And you can make the argument, hey, well, some people say that this is... Technically speaking, yes, this is a dragon, but...
Yeah,
please back at some point. And Brazil tried twice to get new ships, and then went, oh, we can't afford it.
Yeah, because remember, Argentina is crying in the corner going, please don't have a revolution. Please not another revolution. Please not another revolution. Please not another revolution.
I remember correctly where Argentina literally had to send one of their battleships to go and capture the other one again. Or am I misremembering it? I remember one of them had to send their sister ship to go and basically say, no, you're not mutinying away again.
Okay, do you want to assume that Kirsten is a pet, absolute adored
Honestly,
theory of mine?
Yes, the Greeks would probably be happy about it. Potentially, Brazilians, was it? Right.
Because Dragon, Swedish Iron Duke.
Germany's not getting one.
Swedish Iron Duke.
Wow. God, potentially?
I want to know
right.
what both of us would do.
That would be interested in buying these ships.
I want to know what both of us would do with an Iron Duke.
Well, okay,
this is going to freak me out.
Okay, what in the name of flying tomfoolery
so, we realised something.
You've decided, Fleet. Sweden's getting the Iron Dukes.
Under what grounds?
Basically, something that...
I want to see what both of us would do with them.
Yeah, she wants to do that, but on the other hand, it came for basically, Chile still wants to have their second battleship.
Oh, flippity.
They still want to. If the Royal Navy is actively retiring 13.5s, there is a possibility that the Royal Navy might basically go to Chile. So, we're not going to be able to give you Eagle because it'll cost too much to reconvert her. But, we will offer you one of these older ones instead, if you would like to basically continue the previous agreement and go with that. Also, the Swedish were interested in getting ships at this point. They were looking at replacing coastal defense ships. They have some designs. It's more 30s where they want to, but it was some idea.
There was a historical bid for them to buy HMS Tiger for the Baltic Fleet, for their Baltic Fleet.
So
because they wanted something that could lead us to cruiser squadron and effectively deter the Russian gangers.
So there's potential routes that there are and might sell off a couple of the old 13.5s when the new ships hit the water.
The Swedes likely.
It might happen, it might not.
The Swedes will likely buy a battle cruiser Probably probably the one prior to Tiger.
Probably Tiger.
No,
Probably Tiger.
Well, no, you said the RM
When
wants to keep Tiger.
If the RN's keeping her, probably one
the
of the
RN's
Lions.
going to keep her because the Swedes don't want the Lions. The Swedes want Tiger.
If the Swedes make a good enough offer, then I guess they could get Tiger.
Yeah, because the Swedes want Tiger because she's fast enough to deal with anything in the Baltic, and she's built like a battleship. That's why they want her. They can convert her into a de facto kind of fast battleship. By what they want.
Kinda.
A couple of nations might be tempted to buy ships, so there's at least possibility there. That's where some ships might end up. We'll just place that under a tentative. Because it probably won't come up beyond that of, hey, Britain's got a bit of money from selling ships they no longer need.
It doesn't really matter too much, to be fair. It's only a side note.
Isn't Lion's song Princess Royal's fucked?
The problem. Okay, so the problem we've now got is we need to get back on track. We now come to probably one of the more important things: the 1925 RN battle cruiser. The battleship is a 20-inch gun Colossus carrying 9 of the fucking things. What is the RN's 1925 battleship? Sorry, battle cruiser.
Once again, a repeat. Probably once again.
They don't build any.
Yeah,
they don't build anything.
They might just not build any at this point because they're focusing on getting the rest out.
Yeah, honestly, I'll accept that. Not building any in 1925.
Because you've had 3 years of 4 battle cruisers a year. That's 12 new battle cruisers. That's 3 full battle squads, basically.
Yeah, the Royal Navy are going to look at these and go, battle cruisers are thirsty bitches. We're at our limit with the logistical ability to supply them.
Hey, Iraq, about that oil.
Yes.
Thoughts on the names?
Because
they are. No, I'm not even going to try for the names.
Not
okay.
If
Okay,
right,
really, right,
no,
right.
Sure,
No.
King Arthur on one of them. Good enough.
No. I said no. As in, the plans for the post Admiral and post G3 names were mythology based. So you would have had a King Arthur, a Mordred, a Lancelot. There was also a proposal for a Jesus.
Might get a Morgan potentially, but
you had a proposal for Jesus.
It's a thing that is reported in history. Right? Currently, basically, the argument is between whether they would be named after saints or basically Arthurian mythology. Because at the time, in the late 10s and early 20s, Britain had a massive return to Arthurian. Like, it was incredibly popular.
Well, it's not so much a return to Arthurian, it's they got really, really nostalgic for Celtic paganism for some reason. It was strange, because a lot of the modern Celtic movements all come from 1910s Northern England.
Also, to be fair, you'll probably see a couple of repeats potentially making appearances again. You might see a Dreadnought make a return. Same for some of the others. You might, like, a good few of these will probably just sort of go, yeah, we're back.
Well, as for no saints, well, St. George, the patron saint of England. And England does have its own fair share of saints that are still renovated by the Anglican Church. Actually, a lot of Catholic saints are also venerated by the Anglican Church. Certainly really the low Anglican Church that doesn't really do saints anymore, but that's going to piss me off.
We don't talk about religion.
But yeah, a HMS Jesus would be hilarious.
Knight says no, Saint names is a myth, with exclamation marks everywhere.
Right. Yes, some do indeed say that. But they also say the whole thing of mythology was a myth.
HMS Butcher Palace.
Do you mean Persepolis?
Yes, I was about to say that.
HMS, I can't pronounce Greek names.
I don't think you would see England, Scotland, Ireland, or Wales, Moe, because mostly the Royal Navy realised very quickly if they get sunk, that's not great for your public image. Also, yes, the idea of basically them just yelling, HMS Jesus Christ does seem like something that would be amusing.
Oh my god! The only thing that would make it better is if following her was HMS Jason Bourne. Because they go, that's Jesus Christ, and that's Jason Bourne!
I said, I think the ones you probably would see is Arthurian. Battle cruisers, you might get the admiral names again, so you probably see Anson, Howe, Jellicoe, BT make an appearance somewhere.
No, HMS Margaret Thatcher. It just sells off fleet squadrons as mercenaries.
Well, no, it just sells off the coal-fired battleship's coal. You're not allowed this anymore. Goodbye.
It closes to coal bunkers.
Dominion of North America would more be a train name, I feel. Looks at Dominion of South Africa, Dominion of Canada, etc.
Well, isn't Macedonian...
Also, to be fair, Fleet, I think at this point, you've edged them enough to talk about carriers at long last.
I mean, we still have to talk about Japan.
Well, yeah, wait. Do we want to do Japan now or
because because we can blitz through Japan relatively quickly. It's because we've already got the
posters.
We've already got the 23
posters. Amagis. After that, keys and number 13s. Now we come similar again.
Now we come to 24 and 25. So 24 is probably going to be some form of United Fast Battleship, with which 4 will be built.
You would probably. I could see what thing you would basically get is a 5x2 armed 18-inch.
Yeah, probably, and then
basically Amagi style number 13.
And then the final battleship will probably be something with either 9 or 12 18-inch guns in 3 or 4 triples in 1920.
This is how many older ships they've got
in 1925, and that ship will either be 9. Moe, it's no.
Can they afford? Good question.
Oh no, Moe, this is why, as we move towards 24 and 25, you see them pare down from battleships and battlecruisers to just 4 capital ships a year.
They tried the whole 8-8 plan. After a couple of years, they realized this was a mistake. And now this is like 30% of our national budget.
And now they're paring back down to something slightly like Japan is still stretching their budget, but it's a stretch they can keep up for far longer by building 4 capital ships a year rather than 8.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just imagining the Japanese going, "Oh no, we've got no money," and then just the treasury sort of like in it with subsidies.
Well, that's theoretically speaking, Moe, what key is meant to be.
Oh yeah, Moe, that's it. Like, we're having Japan in this timeline move towards in 1924, it's a ship with 5 twin 18s. And in 1925, it's either, if they want to go for more speed, 9 18s in 3 triples, or if they want to go for more firepower, it's 12 18s in 4 triples.
You don't see triples in the Japanese yet.
I would disagree.
The Japanese in the 20s are sticking with the twins.
I would disagree with you if we're moving towards a fast battleship concept.
But their fast battleship concept had 5.
Their fast battleship concept
had 5x2 and 4x.
Yeah, it's 5x2.
Well, the problem is then, what do we do for the design after that? We can't just have more twins. There has to be triples. There comes a point where
you do, because you're Japan, and oh god, we've got a limited economy.
Oh god, we can't. We keep trying this triple gun thing and we can't get it working.
Knight, the Great Kanto
Earthquake
is something that Japan will have to deal with.
Amagi's gone.
No, it takes out Amagi if she's converted to a carrier. If she's not,
no, it doesn't.
No, if she's not, she's in the water.
I thought she hadn't launched yet.
No, but that's because they stopped.
Right. I think she hadn't launched yet because she was being converted to a carrier. They had to tear down a significant portion of the hull for the carrier conversion.
However,
which led to her being
wrecked. If she's not being converted, she's in the water, and hopefully whatever's replacing her isn't that far advanced when Kanto hits. Actually, funnily enough, this actually massively helps Japan by making it so that none of their ships they're building are very advanced, if being built at all, as in like on the slips at all, when Kanto hits.
It turns out that they were all all three of them were parked next to one of the stone quarries around. No, like the old style stone pits that Japan has. And when the earthquake kicked out, just collapses, rips the underside out.
But yeah, honestly, the horrid idea Moe did just point out a horrid idea, and it is possible that you would see a 6x2 design. But
I'm not convinced. I think it's moving too far.
I believe it could happen. But
one of the things the Japanese need to do is they need to keep their speed up. They need to be able to be the ones to dictate the engagement if it comes down to battle line.
To be fair, Fleet, their 5x2 and 4x2 18-inch design are all like 29 plus knots theoretically.
Oh no, I'm aware of that, Dragon. 6,
and we're not dealing with France, Italy, Russia, or Germany because they're not important to the scenario.
And to be blunt,
Russia and Germany have bigger issues.
Well, no,
most notably not having navy in.
Oh no, what I was going to say was even more profound than that. Nothing to them changes until the 1930s. Nothing changes.
Russia has a communist problem.
France and Italy have a money
Germany,
problem.
Actually.
France and Italy have a money problem.
Germany also has a communist problem.
Yeah, France and Italy have a money problem.
Honestly, it does just remind me of one of the upcoming abominations for warships, potentially.
Don't remind me. Anyway, so you wanted
where there were 6x2 designs.
No, the money problem was not fixed by a fascist problem. The Mussolini wasn't an economic genius. He just said, let's actually have some government intervention in the economy and actually kind of do some infrastructure projects.
Mussolini, a lot like Hitler, robbed Tim to pay Tom. And then robbed Jerry to pay Tom.
And made sure Jerry was dead so he couldn't talk about it. Great Depression hasn't happened yet.
The Great Depression could be much worse in this timeline, though.
Or not as bad, actually. Depends.
No, much worse.
Potentially much worse.
Depends how the US economy reacts.
Other nations might be more cushioned against it.
Because the Great Depression is caused by the deregulation of the stock market. It's nothing to do with the Navy, except now the US government not running a massive...
Well,
has a massive fleet to pay for.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. The US economy can go into the toilet. No one else will be trading with the US for 3 years because, the British Empire says no.
So Mexico will still be land-based.
Well, yeah. So Mexico and the US's economy is going to free fall. The rest of the world goes...
which is going to make the crash so much worse for America.
Well, that's fine.
I don't finance it through calling back foreign debt.
I don't care. America can go to the toilet for all I care.
Now you're letting a modern political biases kick in.
No, not at all. No, with this period.
Being a bad boy.
Shut up, Foxo.
Bad boy.
You've all wanted. You've all waited. I've teased you long enough. Let's talk about carriers.
Are you finally going to whip... Oh, you're not going to whip your dick out, are you?
America is having a bit of an awkward time, potentially.
Foxo... I mean, it's not Foxo. Is that middle ship the 20-inch armed ship, by any chance, Sea Dodders? Because those look like big 20-inch guns.
I think the 20-inch is the ones on the far left, actually.
Yeah, the one on the far left needs triples, not twins, Sea Dodders.
I don't think Sea Dodders cares.
Anyway, so let's talk.
Like basically, this one looks more like an updated incomparable.
Yeah, that's the problem. It shouldn't look like that. Anyway, let's talk carriers. So first things first.
1920.
First things first. Let's talk about where the powers stand in early 1922. So
get to this in a moment.
What we're looking at is the RN. With Furious, Courageous, Glorious, full-size carriers.
Yep.
We're looking.
They've also. Here, but...
No, just let me. Can I? You've also got Argus. You've got Eagle. You've got Hermes. No, I think Hermes is just about on the slips being built. I'm not sure if she's in service
No, Hermes
yet.
is finished.
Okay, got Hermes.
Hermes is done.
You've got Hermes. I don't think you've
got HMS Vindictive.
Yeah, you've got Vindictive. Although she won't be long for this world. She'll be back she'll be back as a Hawkins class before too long. Even in this timeline.
No, I could see them keeping her as a carrier for an extended period.
No, given what her conversion actually looked like.
She's too small to work.
And also her
she's got rid of because she's too small.
And her conversion is half-assed anyway. She's not even a full flat deck. She's like an early Furious. That's all she ever gets to. Yeah, Iroh. This literally, it's not.
Actually, I think right. This is some of the stuff we were discussing earlier, and they actually make sense.
I completely disagree.
These are fleet. You're literally looking at designs the U.S. Navy commissioned.
It's farcically too large and a massive escalation in carrier size.
Looks at the Lexingtons?
Those were forced on the USN by the fact they had to convert something.
Yeah, all the rages are converted, Collingwood. Like, all of them by 1924 are carriers.
Glorious is on the way to be converted.
You say these are farcically large, but honestly, no, these are probably what, if the US does choose to build carriers, they probably build something along these lines. Because this is what they were looking at. If not, they'll build the study for 25,500 carrier doing 30 knots,
which is probably more
long.
Which is probably more likely.
I still see them trying the 35,000 one.
The problem with the 35,000 ton carrier is it uses slips they're using for other things. The 25,000 ton carrier can use smaller slips they're not using for other things. The US is building 12 capital. The US is built. Yes.
The carrier be long.
Carrier do be long.
Like, a number of these designs fleet are literally what they based Lexington off. So, I do think these are designs you would probably have seen depending on how the treaty turned out.
The 25,000 ton carrier is the more likely one, basically down to the fact that it will cost less and still provide a realistic increase in carrier capability, especially given the fact that the US is still in the early development, is still in the early period of fielding carriers. They will probably escalate to a 39,000 ton carrier after the fact, but their first carriers will probably be a pair or a quartet of the 25,000 ton ships.
Considering how much they're screaming for big carriers, or even by 2023, I can see them going for the higher tonnage ones. And as people keep saying, apparently America has all these dockyards they can make use of.
Thing is, so let's deal with the US last, because we have the least information on, well, not the least information, but, well, how do I put this gently? Most disagreements about what the US's carrier doctrine would actually be. The British is fairly straightforward. You're probably looking at ships of equivalent size and capability to the Courageous class, because as far as the British are concerned, they want numbers of flat decks, not size. They've already hit upon a good...
The British are also currently happy at the number.
Yeah, but as soon as the US starts laying down...
Note how they don't really build any more till Ark Royal.
Yes, but this is with treaty. Without treaty, they're going to be looking at ships of equivalent size and displacement to... I think Glorious is the biggest that they've got.
Problem is, though, what were we just saying about US dockyards? Now apply this to the UK.
Yeah, the UK is not good.
The UK is not building 8 capital ships a year plus carriers in 22.
I'm just thinking.
No, actually, they can get away with it. Basically,
the groundwork for the
you might get 1 or 2.
It's done in 26, 28.
That's still 4 years beyond the current point in the scenario. Technically, yes, there was the 1923 program.
All they need is 2 carriers a year. They don't need anything more than that.
No, but they can't.
They can't.
like UK, that is limit.
Like, if we're building 8 capital ships a year, you have put, especially in 22, you have pushed the UK to its build limit. Like, or at least for capital ship scale. They can build a lot more smaller things more easily.
Also, cruiser scale.
Yeah, but the problem is they're probably not wanting to build cruiser scale carriers.
I disagree. I disagree.
The only fitting out docks that the battle cruisers can use are the ones the cruisers and the carriers would use. And battle cruisers take forever to fit out, even by large capital ship standards.
Because by 22, a number of the yards are already gone.
Well, 10.
Or are going, or at the point where they've been put into effectively mothball.
Yeah, they're in mothball.
So the problem is, if we're doing this, you're now pushing the UK up to building 10 capital ships per year. And if you wanted to do a new set of ships each year,
depends what size.
You go from 10 to 20 to 30 very quickly.
It depends.
And even
depends.
And
if they've got,
the problem is, even if as soon as you launch the ship, you're putting them out, there's just a limit of how much you can do that.
If we've got the three half sisters, Courageous, Furious, Glorious, being available for conversion, that shouldn't require a fitting out yard. That can be done. That can be done by a quayside.
Yeah, but you're very limited on quaysides that can do ships the size of carriers and battle cruisers.
Flying off decks would basically be gone by this point, $C almost.
Because you have to kind of remember that.
Knight just
Portsmouth doesn't have the places.
Knight says yards will be reopened and the 2 Courageous will not be converted. They'll go in favour of
but it's fitting. What? It's fitting out quaysides.
No, they'll be converted because it's far quicker and easier to convert them than build new ships.
And the RN already has the plans in hand; they won't be got rid of.
Yeah, like the plans are there for 22 to refit them. Like, these ships are probably, by the time of the scenario, are probably already being moved to places to begin a refit.
Because basically, what the RN needs to do is it needs to get these ships rebuilt. Like, if there was any argument for wartime or rapid construction rates for any ships in this timeline, it's the carriers. Because you've got a year, possibly a year and a bit, before the G and N3s leave the slips. So you've got a year to a year and a half to rapidly cycle these 3 carriers through and get them flat decked, get them out to the fleet.
Yep, because once the G3 start fitting out, you're not moving them.
At that point, you're looking at that point. So we'll go with that. So you've got the.
At that point, you're looking at nearly 2 years in fitting out for those ships.
And then that'll basically continue as each of the battle cruisers comes out. So you're looking at a staggered entry into service of about 25 for the GNN3s, 26, 27 for the second follow-on, 28, 29 for the third follow-on.
A cursed idea fleet, HMS Tiger as an aircraft carrier.
Again, but
suggesting Princess Royal into a carrier.
This still runs.
Yes, all the old battle cruisers, they're now carriers.
Yeah, they still. But
there's multiple other.
Yeah, but again, this still runs into the whole, a lack of availability. What I do think I see you do.
Make an effective coal-fired carrier.
What I do think I see, is you have the 3 large carriers, and those are the RN's primary strike carriers. But what you do see is you see the RN following a development line off of Hermes. Because Hermes is smaller.
Unlikely.
She doesn't require as large a yard. She can be fitted out in yards that are smaller.
She's still a 13 to 14,000 ton carrier, and the problem is
it's more of the fact that the Royal Navy spends the 1920s trying to figure out how they made Hermes.
And also, because keep in mind, this is literally the earliest days of carrier consideration at all. This is the very beginnings.
Fun fact. Early on, the Royal Navy didn't really understand how Hermes could keep up with sortie rates with the converted large light cruisers.
Because also at this point, the other carriers currently afloat in the world are Hosho and Langley, and that's it. The only other nations which have them are those two.
And aviation is still very much a fad.
The Royal Navy now has
no.
carriers.
No, by the 20s, aviation is not a fad. We are well past that point. In fact, we were past
aviation carriers is early in development, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah, early in development, but by no means are they a fad.
No, because there are planes being custom designed for it. I agree, but I don't think Fox is necessarily right there. The problem is, it's hard for the Royal Navy to make carriers, and I don't think they'll want to do another Hermes. Just like how Japan didn't want to do another Hosho.
The problem is the Royal Navy doesn't.
They can't figure out. They can't figure out
what went well in it.
Yeah, because they're like, okay, what do we need a carrier to do? Shrug. Okay.
Like, this is literally why they spent basically the next 10 years figuring out how to carrier.
I suppose.
I think the US might try something with the 15 to 20. Might try the 15, 25, or 30,000 ton carrier, but only do a limited number of them because they're also still figuring out.
Yeah,
how to carrier.
Honestly, the USN has the USN has the slips, so I think, Dragon, what you'll see for the USN is you'll see two 15,000 ton carriers and two of the massive 39,000 ton carriers, which is basically the US saying, okay, let's have two divisions of two carriers and see what works best. Is it the big carrier or the small carrier? Which I think is probably right.
Or is the cardboard box?
As for Japan, that's more interesting.
They probably continue as normal. Japan straight up doesn't have the slips for carriers. It's their current battle building plan or carriers, one or the other.
Yeah.
And also, this is if Japan is wanting, and this is still Japan going, we don't need that many cruisers, right?
Yeah, so... I think in terms of what the USN small carriers will be, it'll be the 13,000 ton carrier, two of the 13,000 ton carriers, and then two of the... I don't know whether to go with the 29,000 ton or the 39,000 ton.
Yeah, Japan would definitely keep Hosho, but they'll be looking to build more carriers in future mode, but just not doing so at the moment because, well, their next ship historically was a Kagi.
You're basically looking at Japan not laying down...
You'll probably see Ryujo.
You're not looking... No, you won't see Ryujo. You're looking at Japan not laying down any new carriers until 1924. When the first of their four...
That's what I mean about you'll probably see Ryujo later.
Well, no, you wouldn't even see Ryujo.
I think you would.
No, you wouldn't.
I'm thinking things... I think that they would build another smaller carrier to figure things out, and then actually go for another proper big carrier, because the other ones was the idea of converting...
how big was Hosho? Let me have a look. Hosho, let me...
10,000 tons.
10,000 tons. Okay, so you're probably looking at... Okay, so you're looking at a... You're looking at probably Japan building a pair of 15,000 ton carriers in 1924. With the slips that have been freed up. Well, no, Dragon, bear in mind, they're building 8 capital ships a year. They're building 8 capital ships in 22 and 23. In 24, they're building 4. They have 4 slips freed, and they're going to use 2 of them for 2 smaller carriers. And then in 1925, Japan will go... Well, probably Japan won't just lay down any new carriers in that year.
Kieran sets are at capacity building 8 capital ships.
Yeah, as I said, their biggest yards with the idea of the 8-8 plan were basically filled for the next 4 years from 22.
Well, at least until...
I'm always suggesting you the cruiser slips, Possibly, but again,
Well, no.
then you're sacrificing the
Well,
few
no.
cruisers
But a lot
and
of those
building.
don't exist yet, Moe.
And also,
Moe,
I will,
a lot of those don't exist yet.
and I will point
You'll be
out,
sacrificing
Dragon.
stuff like for attack.
I will point out, Dragon, that again, ships don't sit on slips after they're launched. Which
But
by
Except
24.
for in Japan, they do.
But
They-
in Japan,
they do in
Japan, they literally do a lot of it. And also, B, you've got another problem of, yes, you might go there, but there's still the actual shipyard capacity for work. They do have a limited number of actual workers and man hours they can put onto something.
Yeah, and they're also very limited in places they can build their shipyard.
And Japan is
Japan
still
isn't-
very carefully balancing the books.
Yeah, Japan
They-
isn't like the UK or America where they have a lot of very big river estuaries that they can just throw yards into. Because what the UK has.
Knight's made a very good point that I hadn't actually considered. What about Hosho's sister? What about Japan?
Which one?
What about Japan possibly finishing Hosho's sister, Shikaku? One of the reasons they didn't was because of the treaties with the treaty negotiations. If those fail, instead of cancelling Shikaku, what if they finish it to get 2 carriers to just?
I thought Hosho was a conversion.
No, Hosho was purpose
That's
built.
Langley.
Yeah, Hosho was purpose built, and she was going to have a sister.
The problem is she's cancelled in 22, so it would be cancelled before this is actually starting. Really?
No. Remember, the treaty ends, as in the treaty falls apart in February of 1922. So, no, sorry, not February, January
It's
of 22.
possible you might see it.
I am going to just because it is more interesting, to be blunt. And at
Well,
least that
I
way,
don't think Japan's doing much carrier-wise in this in general, but
it still does give Japan some carriers that can work with their battle fleet.
yeah, Moe's saying that was cancelled literally before she got laid down. So
When was she cancelled?
they would have to 22, but she wasn't started.
Yes,
by 22.
when in 22?
It doesn't exactly say in
I need
22.
a month. I need a month.
I'd give you one if I had one, but
Let's see if Knight's got one. He doesn't have one yet. I'm just going to say that they build both after the treaties collapse. They decide not to cancel Shikaku. It's more interesting that way. So that gives us two small Japanese carriers, which at least gives them some way to put up some form of air umbrella during operations against the US fleet. Because it is highly likely that the US's 2 small carriers are going to be the ones that are going to go and fight the IJN, with the 2 larger 39,000-ton vessels being tried to use to overmatch the future. She gets called Shikaku. I don't know because it doesn't matter, because it's well beyond the timeline, and they won't even exist because there'll be something different. Okay, so right, we've discussed carriers. And carrier aviation is pretty much as historical. No reason to change that.
apparently there's not even basically any actual designs left for her sister existing.
Well, we'll just have her as a repeat, same ship.
It's starting to sound like one of the warships devs is scaring me.
Look, I'm dealing with.
But
I'm
then,
dealing with
assuming-
something so far away from. You know, you get the point. But we're diverting really far away from history
It's
here.
sounding like one of the warships.
But anyway, again, I honestly don't think a second carrier will help Japan much.
It's
but
not supposed to. It's more about practicalities and some level of.
As also was pointed out earlier, honestly, Japan might have to slow down the build because also the Kanto earthquake does damage the actual shipyards.
Yeah.
So even if a ship isn't badly damaged, they have to repair the actual shipyard itself.
Crane go wee. Crane want nap time.
Anyway, so very quickly.
Yeah, Japan would be entirely focused on the 8-8. I agree, Steve.
We're coming up. Well, no, Steve. Japan's abandoning its 8.8 by 24.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
It
can't.
It basically has to.
Right. In 22 and 23, it has to follow it. It might 24 perhaps, but it's still having to focus on it because
Oh no,
even
yeah.
if those ships are launched, they're not finished.
I know that it's focusing on finishing ships, and I agree. But Japan will have abandoned the 8.8 by 24 owing to cost, and they'll be trying to focus on having a unified fleet of fast battleships.
But again, they won't be because they've got the ships physically built then. They're being finished. They're not abandoning it. They're wanting to finish it.
Well, no, because by that point you're looking at just a 10.
Well, no, because
12.
we agreed. No, because we agreed previously. You've got 4 cargas. You've got sorry, not the 4. You've got basically you've got Akagis, you've got Amagis and Tosas. You've then got Keys and number 13s. That is the 8.8 plan, basically, and its expansions.
Oh, I think Moe sums it up perfectly.
Like,
they just can't do another 8.8.
Then they'll have to be dropping down to basically 2-2.
Yeah,
Maybe 2 battleships, 2 battle cruisers, or more likely a 4 unified.
Yeah, and then just like replacing 4 units of ships every couple of years, or every like 4 to 5 years. They're replacing 4 ships in the, force with.
Yeah, and after that, then they are basically going, we're running out of books we can burn.
Yeah. Right, okay. What I'm going to do...
Japan is also still wanting to work on its heavy cruiser project at this point.
Well, cruiser now. It's not heavy cruiser, it's just cruiser.
I'm still going to split into heavy cruiser and light cruiser for the sake of ease.
No, you're denied. Because heavy cruisers don't exist.
They literally do.
No, they don't.
You're denied because the large cruiser and the fleet cruiser still exist.
Yes, they do, but they're not called
As
heavy
in,
and light cruisers.
The Royal Navy was building a large cruiser based on the Hawkins.
Yes, I know.
And a much smaller cruiser built on the Towns.
I'm aware of that. However, they're not heavy and light
Easier to
cruisers.
call them
give
light.
them fancy names. But
Easier
for
to call them
functionality, let's
light
call
and
them
heavy makes
heavy
it easiest.
cruisers.
No,
and
because
light.
those are terms qualified by Second London. I will not have it.
Yes,
But they are also terms that are
it's
agreed upon.
retroactive.
No, they're
But
not.
it's-
They are.
They fucking are. But my point is, do you want to come up with a fancy term for a cruiser that's sub 10,000 and a cruiser that's a lot like, I don't know, the Cerberus designs from Australia, which were 18,000? Or are you just going to call them all cruisers?
Steve, the Marine Nationale aren't even in this. They're not even entering.
That's why I'm saying laughing at them.
Yeah, because fleet, there's a clear distinction between two types of cruisers that in.
Yes, there are, but they're not
What
heavy
do you
and
want to call them?
large and
But they
large,
are-
What do you
large
want to
and
call
fleet.
them then?
Large and fleet.
Yeah,
But then-
what do you want to call them?
Large and fleet.
But what about these fleet ones that get large?
Well, then you call them large fleet.
What are they
cruisers.
then?
Well, they're probably still fleet cruisers technically, despite their
It's
size.
easier
Okay,
just
well,
to say light and heavy.
No, I refuse,
Well, too bad. We're going to keep doing it anyway.
and I will keep
Yeah.
calling you out for it every single time you do.
Well, then you'll have to have that and fun.
But I would like to point out the Royal Navy, before the treaties, referred to its 6-inch cruisers as light cruisers.
Honestly, cruisers is where the
light
US is
armored
having
cruisers.
issues.
Light armored cruisers. It's a very specific term.
But they're still light cruisers.
Light armored cruisers.
The armored is often the armor is often not put in official documents.
Well, yes, because that's because
they
they,
are
like
light
to trim
cruisers.
they try to trim things down.
Anyway,
Yeah, so they're light cruisers.
For God's sake, I give up.
I'm sorry,
Good.
if the people call it the light cruisers, the politicians call them light cruisers, and the sailors call them
Then
light
why
cruisers.
do we have to keep perpetrating
They're light
idiocy
cruisers.
and dumbing down of names when they're actual names
Because
of
it
fleet
actually
cruisers?
works.
Yeah, because
And it's also then what
an
people
anachronistic
accept.
system.
Well,
No, smaller
But
cruisers
it's a
aren't
system
scout cruisers.
that
Scout
works.
cruisers are a different type of cruiser that's light. Yeah, heavy cruiser and light cruiser is a functional term. There's the reason
it's
why they applied anachronistic
We
is because
agree.
it worked.
It's anachronistic. We agree. But when you say a heavy cruiser, people get the general gist. When you say light cruiser, people get the general gist.
Problem is, people
If it
the
works,
people
it
watching these videos will understand the nuances that
It's
we're
still
trying to
the easiest
convey.
way of doing it.
Yeah. Also, we
Anyway,
have no fucking idea what everyone would call these.
no, we don't. To be fair, all right, I'll agree to that. But I want to insist we call them. Oh, sorry, I don't care. We'll cross the bridge with each individual ship as we come to it. Anyway, right now, guided missile cruisers. That is a massively nebulous term because one can argue that till the end of days, and I'm not even going to get into that. Moving on.
Look, cube.
Moving on.
All hail the cube.
Anyway, look, I am going to give people 10 to 20 minutes of rapid-fire questions on what's currently been discussed, on what's been discussed up to this point, and then I'm calling it a night.
Cube.
And there will be a part 2.
Cube.
And there will be a part 2 next week, where we get towards the actual war itself and the land combat involved.
Okay.
So,
And that means I get to talk about my favourite
And
topic.
by
Warfare.
then Clark will turn up and make it all moot.
torpedo development. It happens. That is
Continues as usual.
that is literally all we need to do.
No, I do think it's the adoption of 21-inch torpedoes a lot quicker. Because 18s aren't going to be effective against these chunky motherfuckers.
To be fair, I'm pretty sure those are already more commonplace on the cruisers, at least. I think on actual surface ships, the 21 inches becoming a standard at this point.
Anyone else got any more questions
destroyers,
regarding? Anyone else got any more questions regarding the topics currently discussed before I close down for the night?
Yes.
Well, keep in mind, Fox, at this point, the A-class destroyer is in development in 1922, which is 2x for 21-inch torpedoes. I very much disagree with the whole point about
we haven't talked about cruisers and destroyers and submarines. That'll be next week. It's please keep the questions to what's currently been discussed because I don't want to tread new ground. It's cruisers.
But it's also a case of...
Yeah, by 1918 when there were 21 inch. Yeah, by 21 they were all. By 1918 there were 21 inch. The Steve.
Yeah, but it's like the vast majority of destroyers are still using 18-inch.
The Clemsons are running around with 21s.
To be fair, I'm still skeptical.
But they're the Clemsons.
I'm still skeptical about theirs.
So there's 20
21 inch
guns.
gun wants to use the rotation speed.
Whatever the turret rotation speed will be, that's such a minute detail that it really doesn't it's not.
Look, I'm going to be my inner Victor salesman and say it's 180 degrees a second.
So Foxo,
basically
all British destroyers at this point were running around with 21-inch torpedoes.
How are the Italians going to respond?
I don't think the older ones were.
The old ones were as well.
How are the Italians going to respond? With that, yeah, basically. I suppose the BBs will not have torpedoes. It depends from class to class.
Oh no, the BBs will have torpedoes.
They'll all have. Following British design, they'll all have underwater torpedo tubes. Probably only 2 of them, but still they'll have tubes.
Four.
But they're 4. Fair.
4. It's.
I think the Nelsons only have 2 at least, but.
No, 10.
Honestly, I don't think
Nelsons have 2 because they had 1 cut.
Nelson, I
But
don't
the
think
launches are tube to tube.
Knight, I don't think the 9.2 will be the standard for post-Hawkins cruisers of the large type. I think it'll be a 7.5 with the 6-inch gun.
Right, the 9.2 is a fucking old-ass gun. It's not going to be used. The 7.5 is a weak-ass gun. It's not going to be used.
I see them going... Right, considering they were already going for a 8-inch gun, I see them going for the 8-inch gun standard.
That'll just be the standard cruiser caliber from now on.
I don't.
And it
might try and make a new 9.2 potentially,
and it'll replace the 6-inch gun.
I followed the Navy's proposal for dreadnought cruisers.
Steve.
I guess 9 11-inch guns on a cruiser.
Yeah, the 9.2, Steve, was the British large cruiser caliber before the dreadnought era.
But it was also a caliber they did keep looking back of. We can make a new 9.2 that would work very effectively. This was a thing that repeatedly came up, even in World War II, was we could make a very effective 9.2. We've got the design here. Do you want it?
What's the expected? Okay, what's the expected battle line speed? For the Americans, the battleships can do 23 knots. The battle cruisers can do. Come on, fleet. Come on.
30.
30. For the British, you've got a slow core of 23 knot ships centered around the first two classes of N3 and N3 derivative, and the Rs. And then you've got a fast wing centered around the later classes of 18 and then later 20-inch battleships that can do 24, 25 knots. And for the battle cruisers, you're looking at 30 knot plus, at least 31 knots for all of them, from G3 up. Would Hood be a BB or a BC? She already exists.
Still BC, technically.
Yeah, Steve, there's...
The 20-inch is a gun that was already considered for development. The 18s are almost certainly going to be the same.
Oh no, most of the
Britain
RN...
might at least look at it.
Yeah, most of the RNs... most of the RN has the 18-inch gun. It's just the RN builds a class of... Well, it's plans to be 4, they lay down 2, and they only finish 2. No, I don't think I am wrong, Steve. I don't think I am wrong, Fleet of Oceans. I don't think I am wrong, Steve.
Okay. Thing is, I actually agree with Steve. Hey, you're wrong. They won't build them, but technically, Vickers can make them. You're gonna make Vickers himself turn in his grave enough to emulate a nuclear reactor, because it's gonna have it's gonna be an 18-inch Dahlgren in the early Ironclad era. But yeah, we can build it, but it's not much fucking use because it's not practical. But Vickers could technically make them, and you could technically put it in a gun cradle, and you could technically fire it at the enemy.
Right, again, I'll be honest, as much as a 20-inch gun finish, I also agree it's unlikely, but if the idea is constantly scaling things up, I could see a 20-inch gun tried, just not by the Americans.
It's technically possible. In the same way that it's technically possible for a human to flap their arms and fly.
Now, it depends how many nat 20s you get.
Exactly. Like, theoretically, the human arm joint can change direction fast enough for a human to vibrate themselves into the air. It's just going to shred your muscles.
I don't agree the US wants a larger gun, considering the US did tests on larger guns and said, this is not worth it. By the sheer fact that they already did not like the 18-inch gun, and they didn't deem it any sufficient over the newer 16-inch guns in the early 20s. Honestly, no, Furious will get fully converted. The idea that the US will want to go to 20s, not the British, makes no sense either. Like, the British at least have Vickers who have mentioned it. The US...
Newport Arsenal's going to tell the Americans to go fuck themselves. And to J out of real life.
The US have already said, we don't want this. It's now been forced upon them somehow. They'll go, fine, but we're not accepting larger. Because as much power as the US might have, its companies and its navy can just go, no.
Because you run into what I like to call the American light tank problem, where the Americans put out some quite ludicrous contracts requirements for a light tank, and for most of the time until they drop the requirements, no company goes for it. The money's there on the
Because
table for those willing to get it working.
The US is going to go to 18-inch, and as Clark has mentioned, this is probably what will happen, and you'll probably settle on the 18-inch. The problem is, trying to get more than that is very hard. And again, US has already had 18-inch gun. They don't like them. It doesn't work properly.
Make no mistake, one of the reasons why I've gone for a 20-inch ship as the final design is basically this 20-inch ship is basically the final step up, as it were. It's basically partially driven by British public pressure to have the biggest battleships with the biggest guns in the world, and partially driven by, a desire to almost kind of see where the end point is. And they're laying them down.
Yeah, and Vickers has been telling them, and the design bureau has been telling them, the end point's the 18-inch.
Which is what they'll probably learn with these ships if they do build.
Oh no, completely. I'm not saying these will be the a really effective ships that will blow away up. No, they'll probably be very expensive harbor queens, with really troublesome guns. But never underestimate the power of the British press, especially in this period.
Yeah, but don't underestimate the political power of Vickers, Flynn.
We want the 20-inch gun and we won't wait. We want 20s and we won't wait.
Yeah, Vickers, well, fuck you. We're the only person that can build it, and we're not willing to take the contract.
Immediately
Who
get
who else are you going to get the gun from?
And you're going to try and nationalise us. Well, I hope you've got the King's permission for that, because we're a Crown Corporation, you see.
Yeah,
we only answer to the King, not the Parliament.
I agree with Clark. I personally cannot possibly see larger than 20-inch twins. To me, it just doesn't make sense to try and get a 20-inch triple. I still don't think a 20-inch would make much sense in general.
That was Foxo's idea.
Work.
Yeah, the triples were Foxo's idea.
But I still...
I was personally more in favour of the 20-inch twin, of which there would be you'd have.
I see either 3x2 or 4x2.
4x2 makes sense. You've got the correct number of guns for caliber, and it also negates some of the issues with rate of fire because you can do half salvos to help get the range.
Yeah, but it's the triple in the single cradle negates a lot of the triple negatives of the 20-inch.
Honestly, Panama Canal
not going to get
interesting when we get to that. I honestly could see one of the fleet problem scenarios comes up of, well, someone just sort of blew up a ship inside the locks.
That's literally one of the fleet problems. Yeah, that was one of the fleet problems.
I know, because as soon as those locks are taken out, it becomes a lot more annoying for the US to get ships around the place.
Yeah, but didn't that move get
that was legal because no one actually bothered to check the security.
Yep, Steve, you're probably right there, but then again, that's probably also part. They'll probably have to enlarge the locks for some of the later generations of 16-inch battlecruiser anyway.
The issue with enlarging the Panama Canal is that it took literal decades.
Oh no, I'm aware of that.
Not gonna.
But I would also
not be built in time.
I would also point out that while the Panama Canal shortens the trip, it's not a requirement.
It did make it, did, but they didn't make it this big that quickly.
No,
yeah,
but also but I will also point out that while it does help the USN with speed. That I'm sorry, but there's not really. You can go via the Straits of Magellan. Because it takes longer, but it's...
Yeah, but Steve, the thing with that is, that was shaving distance off the side and the walls of the canal.
Of the locks, you mean?
Yeah, of the locks. What they found out was, either side, they had hit mountain bedrock. They had hit the proper stuff.
If we keep going through this, it'll cause problems.
Which is why when you look at the current efforts to expand the Panama Canal, the price is perpetually skyrocketing because they realise...
Where were you suggesting they head through also, by the way, fleet?
The Straits of Magellan.
The Straits of Magellan, south of...
Magellan, right.
Bomb of Argentina. It's a case of...
So what? Go all the way around south? Yeah, go all the way around the.
Like, it takes longer. But
Yeah.
I mean, no, yeah. Okay, Admiral, I know you joke, but a lot of the proposals, especially in the 50s, to expand the Panama Canal, is to fucking nuke it.
The problem is, Fleet, going around the Strait of Magellan, Chile is very much a British aligned power at this point.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but no.
It's
there is no.
What am I going to say then?
Yeah,
what am I saying here, Fleet? What am I saying that you've apparently cancelled out so quickly?
They're not going to block US ships from using the straits, nor can they even
Who said
try.
anything about that?
And they're not going to join the war either.
Who said anything about that?
Then what are they going to do?
Tell the British the ships have sailed by.
Yeah. That's something they could entirely do legally. It's just, yes, British consulate. So, yep, here you go. We had a squadron of American ships sail around at this point. They've been taking this course as far as we're aware, just to let you know. Right, bye.
And don't say the British wouldn't do it, because they did it in both World Wars.
Well, no, I'm aware of that, but that's just the risk you have to take.
They did it in the Falklands War.
But that's just the risk you have to take.
The problem is,
Steve,
honestly,
you can.
It makes it much better for them to
Steve,
try and deal with them.
You can't.
The Southern Ocean is very fucking big.
There's no realistic blocking force the UK can put in place with the infrastructure in the region to stop the Americans doing this. And
they can
you would need control of Argentina and to put port like Buenos Aires, but there is a technical way.
Well, if you could get a squadron of battle cruisers down there, which you could reasonably do, you could at least be an interdiction force and make it unwelcoming to do so.
Well, I still say the USN will find ways to overcome the challenges and free up their passengers. Or
potentially.
To continue Clark's thing about the Panama Canal.
Or to be blunt.
To expand the Panama Canal, you have to do a shit ton of terraforming. Because of, like you said, the lake reservoir. And that's a rainwater reservoir. So that's pretty linear. I've just checked. It's mostly filled by rainwater and melt ice. So you, as I understand it, you would have to modify the canal so it doesn't go through that central lake, because it's a case of you'd have to find a way to stop that big lake at the top of the lock from draining out, which is the issue the current Panama Canal's got when they expanded it. Because outflow rate is slightly higher than inflow rate.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not fixing that to get these ships through.
Yeah, it's probably
we can't fix it nowadays.
The hope they can try and do it, but
right.
It's a case of we can't fix that nowadays, Dragon.
The Royal Navy will probably someone will probably just try and make it so that they're not really passable.
And I would just point out that the US will probably prepare for a war with Britain and Japan, since they're planning to start it.
Yeah.
By just making sure their ships are where they want them and having yards on both ports.
As Mo was saying, having a squadron in the Caribbean basically prevents the US using the Panama Canal.
Okay. Question: do you think a battleship or a battle cruiser squadron could brave the Northern Passage?
No. Not at all.
At this point.
Well, no, because first of all, no, because no. Second of all, no, because Canada. Right, look, I'm talking
about Royal Navy ships.
No, they won't. It's not viable. They couldn't even do it with a bloody nuclear-powered ice-breaking oil tanker in the 70s. They can't do it with a squadron of battleships in the 20s.
No, but they did do it with a steam frigate several times.
Yes, but that's different. A wooden hull ship.
Okay, eventually Encounter got stuck and crushed.
Yeah, so therefore my point still.
Look, she did transit several times.
Look, it's come up on the end on all the time we have. from this point on, once we've got through the cruisers, destroyers, and submarines next week, we're basically into the realm of pure fan fiction with the outcome of the war and the way the war will go. So I hope you're all looking forward to next week. I know I am after what we've started today. I'm partially regretting my decision, but hey ho, you live in the bed that you make. I hope you've all had a fantastic day listening to me ramble on.
Well, when we're doing your favourite series, Fleet, by the way?
A few months yet, at least.
Oh no, yeah, that's going to be favourite series, possibly with me in person down in London. With other people involved.
I'll be on Discord probably.
We'll have to see how we go. Right.
Do you realise how expensive a train to London is these days?
Yes, I'm aware, but I don't think I have much choice, unless that's not what we're doing.
It would actually probably be cheaper for me to fly, but
Drakestrom, except I can't come because I'm working. And the work's decided to lay off 30% of
Yes, Foxo, now is not this is not the time or place.
It's the perfect place to vent.
Right. Good night, everybody.
I'm vomiting. I'm not.